All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to Cryptid and Paranormal Kingdom. Um, Tonight, I have a very special guest. Well, actually, two. It's a dynamic duo. That I've been waiting, to get them on forever. I mean, I'm talking about months, not, anything longer than that, but months. And I'm so stoked tonight that they're here. They're finally here. They're finally on my show, which I've been waiting on, excited, and I'm pretty sure you guys are gonna be excited too once you guys see them come on. It's Hellbent Holler, one of my favorite channels on YouTube that I am subscribed to and that I follow and that I join their lives and comments and stuff on their videos. I personally, I believe, well, I think, this is my opinion. Personally, I think that they're two of the best researchers out there, period. And I mean that by not just cryptid or paranormal, but everything, every spectrum of the high strangeness topic. And they're very, very knowledgeable because I've seen them, what they talk about on their live streams. And I'm like, wow, I'm blown away, like how much information they have, right? And the, intricate explanations they give, right? So detailed. So, yeah, guys, I'm glad everybody made it here tonight. Thank you for coming. All of the people that I invited and all the people that Holler Bent invited. Thank you. I see you guys in the chat. Thank you very much for being here tonight, guys. And yeah, well, we're going to have a great show tonight here, with Hellbent Holler, guys. So let me go ahead and bring them on, all right? Hey, how y'all doing? Joe, Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, man?
Great, doing great, man. How you guys doing, man?
We're doing well. Can everybody hear us out there okay?
Awesome, bro. Awesome. Hey, yeah, your mic sounds real good. Right, I don't know about the people in the chat. If y'all can type in, if y'all can hear Joe and Jesse well, or if you can hear them low, just let us know, okay? But yeah, I can hear you good, guy.
Yeah, James Barker says he can hear us. So
okay,
good to go.
Awesome.
Yeah, we always got to do mic checks at the beginning of our lives.
Yeah, I've seen that. All right, well, guys, I want to thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to thank both of you guys for being here tonight. And like I was telling the people in the chat just a minute ago, that I've been waiting to have you guys on for a long time, which is maybe 2-3 months or so. But yeah, man, I'm so stoked y'all are here tonight, guys. And it's gonna be like I was telling you guys behind stage. It's gonna be all about you guys tonight, all right? Because everybody knows that I talk a lot, but tonight I'm gonna try to hold off on talking so much because I want you guys to to talk and tell everybody what you guys do and how y'all do it and all that. So is that cool?
Yeah, it sounds great, man.
That's fine.
All right. Hey, so my first question is, well, actually not question, but I've noticed, I've seen that you guys actually started back in 2018, which is what, 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, we've been doing this for a bit longer before that. We just started the channel back then. Jesse's been doing like paranormal research for years. I was more involved with like physical, like cryptozoology type stuff, mostly Bigfoot, looking into like physical stuff. And then when she and I got together, we kind of joined forces and just started looking at general like weird Appalachian type stuff,
Right.
And then we decided to kick the channel into gear about 4 years ago. Then
Yeah,
about right.
yeah.
So yeah.
And I think we posted our first video on like maybe 3 years ago, 3 years ago. But we really wanted to combine what we did and make something that was truly unique, something that we didn't see anybody else doing out there. We wanted to do field investigations as well as do the podcast, and we're kind of evolving Hellbent Holler as we go along.
Right. Well, I noticed that because first you guys started with the videos, which are great, by the way. I love each and every video y'all make out there, boots on the ground. And then I've noticed that you guys started your live streams, right? Which I said, wow, that's even better. You know what I mean? Because we get to know Joe and Jesse a little bit more than the videos, right? And what
I don't
y'all
know if
started
that's
that not too long ago, right, Jesse? When did y'all start the live streams?
I think we've done 11 live streams at this point, including we did a live investigation on Devil's Night. So we're up to like 12 live streams at this point. We do them
Wow.
every Monday at 8 p.m. on our channel. And we started doing that because we wanted to have a more interactive experience with our audience and actually have a live conversation with everybody, kind of toss around ideas and really interact with everybody and bring everybody into it. Because Hellbent Holler is not just us, it is everybody that is involved in watching the videos, emailing, giving us suggestions, throwing ideas at us. It's really a collaborative effort between Hellbent Holler and what we call the Hellbenders.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I didn't even know about the Hellbenders until James mentioned it. He's like, good evening to all Hellbenders in the chat. I said, okay.
The name came from, we were doing a live stream and I was like, we got to call ourselves something. Like everybody that is involved in Hellbent Holler, we've got to call it something. So I threw out a couple of ideas and everybody voted in the chat. They're like, Hellbender. So they loved it. So it's kind of like everything we do, it evolves very organically. We start from one spot and we just let it kind of roll. We feel it out. And a lot of our investigations go the same way.
Yeah.
We just follow the thread where it takes us. We start in one place and we don't know where we're going to end up, but we just let whatever happens and take us there. And so that's what we've been doing with Hellbent Holler as well as an entire entity.
Wow. Cool. Awesome. I love that. Thank you, guys. Hey, and another thing I wanted to just mention real quick. Maybe a lot of people don't know, but I seem to notice that you guys cover not only cryptids but paranormal and demonic entities and all types of high strangeness topics, don't y'all?
Yeah, and that's part of that evolution that Jesse talked about. Because like I said, when we started off, Jesse came from like a paranormal background. Looking at paranormal activity. And I was pretty much just all Bigfoot. I mean, none of the other like cryptid or weird activity really interested me at all. I mean, I was aware of it just because, I'm into weird stuff. But
right.
I was basically just 100% focused on Bigfoot. I had a 100% just flesh and blood approach to it. I started off thinking it was just an undiscovered ape out in the woods. And then the more we've gotten out into this region, especially, because this region's got a lot of weird stuff in it, man. The Southern Appalachians, I mean, there's a plethora of just weird stuff going on here. And we tried to approach this with like no preconceived notions about stuff. We don't get out there thinking we've already got all of this stuff figured out when we go out into the field. Like Jesse said, we go out and we just kind of follow where the evidence leads us.
Right.
So that original hunt for Bigfoot has branched off into the investigation of other weird stuff because that's what we're running into out there. I mean, to be honest with you, out of everything that we've gone out there looking for, we've probably found the least amount of Bigfoot evidence, and then we find evidence of just so much other weird stuff out there. So,
right.
You run into a lot of researchers, like not to badmouth anybody, but like the BFRO. They'll go out and they're looking specifically for like an undiscovered ape. And if they run into anything else that's strange, they kind of just ignore it or explain it away or anything like that. And we try not to take that approach to it. We try to go out and basically just investigate and then just see what sort of activity we get and then just follow that activity. And it takes us in some pretty strange directions. Before our LBL trip, we didn't really give a lot of credence to the idea of dogman. I just didn't think that was something that seemed biologically possible. And then we went to the LBL for that first trip and we got that thermal image and we started speaking to witnesses like one-on-one and dived in a little deeper than what, just hearing the stories that everybody hears online and reading the stuff on Reddit and everything like that. But we actually, once you actually start to speak to these people and then have your own experiences, we had to reevaluate that position. So nowadays we just try to stay open to everything. If somebody calls us up, even if it seems kind of impossible, the activity they're experiencing, we'll give it a shot and we'll go out there and look into it and just try to arrive with no preconceived notions at all.
And it seems a lot of the phenomenon is cross spectrum anyway. You have a lot of reports, there's been reports through the past of Bigfoot sightings going along with UFO sightings, Bigfoot sightings in cemeteries. And it seems like the more that we do this, the more that we realize that a lot of the phenomenon is connected and cross spectrum. We don't know exactly how it's connected. That's what we're kind of investigating. But I think if you're so compartmentalized in what you look into and what you research, or, are going into the woods looking for, you're going to miss larger clues. You're going to miss the bigger picture, because you're going to be ignoring all kinds of evidence that may be before you, but because it's not what you would consider your lane, you miss out on so much. So I think having an open mind about what you're looking for, and just keeping your eyes open and just accepting what it throws at you is what we think is the best approach for what we do.
I think that's really hampered the whole investigative approach to all sorts of anomalous activities before. You might have some guys from MUFON that go out and they're going to investigate, something that's happened just from a strictly UFO standpoint. Okay, they're out there looking for strange craft from another planet. You're going to have BFRO folks that go out and they're just going to investigate it from a Bigfoot activity standpoint. Anything that doesn't follow into that very narrow parameter of Bigfoot activity, they're just going to basically shoot out to the side and not pay any attention to. You've got paranormal investigators, ghost people that go out and they're going to view everything through the lens of, hey, we're dealing with the spirits of the dead here. So we try to go out and basically take a full spectrum look at anything. If somebody's hearing screams from the woods, we don't automatically go out and say, hey, you've got Bigfoot in the area. We go in and look at it and try to see what other sort of evidence is out there. We ran into a lot of occult activity into this area, which seems to be a bit more prevalent in this part of the country than it seems to be in other parts of the country. There's something about the Southern Appalachians that seems to just kind of draw in that real dark activity. And we find occult activity a lot of times in areas where we're finding cryptid activity, paranormal activity, strange lights in the sky. So that's something that I wonder if that's happening more often out there, and maybe researchers just aren't open to the idea of that. And maybe they're just kind of overlooking that sort of evidence. So, so we try to cover all the bases, man. So
awesome. Hell yeah, man. That's awesome. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. You guys cover a lot of the Appalachian. I was going to ask you guys, do y'all think that the Appalachian Trail might be one of the very first hot spots for cryptids? Because that's kind of the idea that I get from all the encounters that I've heard now since maybe 6 or 7 years or something like that, when I really got into cryptids. It seems like most of them have been from the Appalachian Trail. You know what I mean? Like the very first ones were from there. Like I've even heard of people mentioning that the people, when they first arrived here to the North American continent, and obviously they started from the Appalachian Trail and worked their way down. I heard many stories that they were getting attacked by these cryptids. You know what I mean? And I don't know how much that is true, but that's what I've learned. So that's why I like to ask, like, what do you think about that? What is your take on that? You know what I mean?
The Appalachian Mountain Range is one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. That's why the hills are a little more rounded off, because over time and erosion they've been worn down, as opposed to, say, the Rocky Mountain Range that is a lot more craggy and sharp and everything, is because it's a newer mountain range. So these have been very remote, very dark, very hidden places for a very, very long time. This is a very dark and ancient place, and there are cave systems everywhere here. So that actually lends itself to having an environment and a location for these things to hide out, that they can move freely through these cave systems. That is, like, you look at Kentucky, for example, the Mammoth Cave system and everything. Most of it is unexplored at this point. We don't know what's down there. We don't know how far these caves go. We don't know what could be coming out of them, going in and out of them. We don't know that. So there's definitely an environment here, and this is a place that has been this way for so long that it could be the origin of where some of these things come from.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I agree, Jesse. And another thing that I've learned, I'm gonna stop saying that I heard or whatever. I'm gonna start saying that I've learned, because that's what it is. Another thing that I've learned throughout the years is that there's a lot of cave systems within the Appalachian Trail. So that gives me reason to believe that they dwell in those cave systems, which I have mentioned a lot on many shows before. That they live underground. You know, at least the flesh and blood ones live underground in cave systems, right? And they come out to feed. They come out to whatever, mate, whatever. Teach their young to hunt, whatever. And that's what I think is going on there, that they live underground in the cave systems. And like Jesse just mentioned, the Appalachian, mountains, they have a lot of that. They have a lot of, cave systems around there. So that's where, I get that, they come out and attack people. And I think they still do to this day. Another thing, there's a lot of, like Jesse mentioned, Kentucky. I know Kentucky and Tennessee both have a lot of like mining, what is it called, mining caves and stuff, where they got limestone and all kinds of, and I'm thinking that even those burrows that were once, mines, caving, mines that they used to, mine, caves that they used to mine, or even man-made, dwellings that they go down, deep in earth and, excavate, whatever. I think maybe if those were abandoned, now they're populated by these types of, creatures, which are, cryptids. That's what I have come up with, throughout the years, because there's been many sightings. Mm-hmm.
A lot of the Cherokee legends, and the Cherokee and the Catawba were the main tribes that were settled around the area that we usually investigate in. And the Cherokee legends, we usually delve pretty deeply in those, because when you look at them, there's usually a direct correlation between what the Cherokee and the Catawba were experiencing before European settlers came here, and then what people are experiencing nowadays. And it's repeated theme in a lot of these legends, things that come out from underground. There's the Cherokee Moonite people, which it's not much of a stretch of the imagination to kind of make an equivalent to those, to the Kentucky goblins, like the Hopkinsville goblins, the pale crawlers that people talk about. Well, the Cherokee were experiencing the exact same thing back then, and actually went to war with them and then drove them back underground. But they would supposedly come up every once in a while, steal children, try to attack the tribe, catch people that were out on their own. But again, it's that constant thing of they came from underground. There's an area that we investigate a lot, that there's a legend of fire-breathing demons, basically what they called them, that come out of the cave systems in these mountains. And the Cherokee wouldn't go into this particular mountain range where we go to investigate at, because they said that anybody that went up there would not come back at that point, and they laid the blame at the feet of these subterranean fire-breathing demons then. So I think that in addition to that, we always look at it like this, that we don't really put a single origin to almost any like aspect of the paranormal or the cryptozoology. Like, I think there's more than one creature out there that people are associating with dogmen. I think some of them seem like they're
misidentification.
Yeah, right. I think that some of them are more physical, and then others seem to be more demonic, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. I think there's things living here, but I think that, they're not here all the time. They're not in the woods all the time. So I think that subterranean idea goes a long way towards explaining why you don't find breeding populations of these creatures above ground. You don't really find bodies.
Or dead bodies, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm.
They pop out, they do whatever they're going to do, they sometimes interact with people, and then they just go away.
Yeah, and if one gets killed off the side of the road, like Martin Groves said, they're most likely taken to their caves, to wherever they have to take them.
Or the government swoops in. But I think that in addition to that flesh and blood cave thing, there's just something about these mountains. I mean, there's something about these mountains. I mean, if you look at the Cherokee lore, the general Cherokee lore of the mountains are much different than from the lower lying areas. And you see that generally pretty much all across this portion of the country. The mountain legends always seem to be a little bit darker. And I don't know if it's maybe the mineral makeup of these mountains, but it seems like there's more paranormal activity going on in them as well. So you take the Appalachian Trail, you asked about. I think activity like this is going on all through the Appalachians. It's just that the trail is where the people are. You know what I'm saying? So that's where you get the witnesses at. It's probably going on all over these hills. It's just there's not a lot of people in these hills. You go into like say Smoky Mountain National Park. The touristy areas are packed. You know, you can't get into them. There's so many people there. That's just it's such a small part of that area. However, most of
Mm-hmm.
the Smoky Mountain National, Forest, there's nobody in. You know what I'm saying? They might not see a human in that area for years and years and years. You know what I'm saying? So I think that activity is it's a lot more prevalent in this area than people really think about.
I'd
It's
like to pose maybe sort of a flip side to this. Joe usually, like we discussed before, Joe really, really goes towards the physical cryptid conversation. That's like his affinity is the physical cryptid side of things. And
Mm-hmm.
I tend to have a more of a spiritual bent. I'm more into more paranormal, ghostly things. I wanted to pose something because you mentioned minds earlier. When you are think about this in terms of ghosts, paranormal, poltergeist activity, ghost activity. When you start doing construction on a house, is when it seems like the ghost activity sort of whips up and gets
Mhm.
crazy. You mentioned mines before. If you look at this at a wider range and think of people going into the earth and digging into the earth and disturbing the earth, and then all of this activity kicks up from that, it's the same thing as doing construction on a home and it's starting the
Mhm.
paranormal activity.
Wow. Wow. That's great. Thank you guys. Thank y'all for sharing that with us, man, because that's a lot of things to take in for people that don't really, know that much about it. They know somewhat, but not that much as you guys do, you know what I mean? And who was it just said right now? Okay, there it is. It said Jesse and Joe are awesome and very informative. Yes, I agree with that, West Coast dog, man. Yes, they are. That's why I love having them here tonight, man, because they're pretty much teaching us tonight. Thank you, Jesse and Joe. Appreciate that. I have had a couple of people, Jesse and Joe, mention that that you guys' volumes are kind of low. If y'all can maybe turn up your volume, either on your mic or your laptop.
Let me see what we can do
Let's see
Mm-hmm.
what we can do.
here. I'm gonna turn it up over here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Awesome. And Jesse, what do you guys think about my
Don't try to
theory?
camera bug.
No, it's cool. It's cool. I have a theory that there's three types of cryptids, right? The flesh and blood. The first one's flesh and blood. The second one is spiritual, demonic, supernatural, paranormal, whatever you want to call it. And the third one is more interdimensional, as into related with the aliens in space or whatever, wherever they come from. What's your guys' take on that? Because
Who's
I
to
know
say
y'all
that
mentioned
all,
them.
who's to say that all three aren't the same thing?
Yeah.
Hey, that's perfect volume right there. That's awesome.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
Is that good?
Yes,
Okay,
All right.
that's
yes,
good.
it's nice
Yeah,
and loud now.
my thing is this that we always try to approach we try to approach a fantastic subject. All this stuff's fantastic when you get down to it. But we try to approach it as common sense as we possibly can. So I started off, like I said, like I used to think that there was a Bigfoot out there, and I didn't really believe in ghosts or UFOs, or I thought the idea of a dog man was just ridiculous. I was
Uh
just focused on an undiscovered ape out in the woods.
Right, the Bigfoot.
But then you
Where?
start to look
Uh-huh.
at it and you go, like we've talked about, where are the bodies at? I mean, you would need a minimum number for a breeding population. And that's pretty much true for anything. Like, I don't think Dogman you hear some people talk about how they think they're just mutated wolves. I don't think that's the case. I just don't see that being biologically possible. So once you kind of eliminate that biological possibility, well, you look at this. I mean, these things are obviously physical. They leave marks on the environment. They leave tracks. They injure people. Sometimes they kill people. So they're able to interact with the environment. So obviously there has to be a physical aspect to them.
Right.
But I just don't think they're here all the time. Now, where do they go to is the question. I think some of them are subterranean. And I think some of them, whether you want to call them interdimensional, whether they're just able to, maybe they're more of a spiritual nature and they're able to just basically solidify in our reality every so often. But I just don't think they're definitely here above ground 24/7. I just think that we would be able to have more evidence of them. So for me, I still think that there's a biological aspect to this. I just don't think it's natural, above ground, like earthly biology. Um, we've really been leaning towards like an interdimensional hypothesis for almost everything at this point. And that's
Right.
something that I used to kind of like laugh off, but um, we've seen what we think are portals opening up. I mean, we followed tracks before that just seemed to disappear. They just stopped. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah,
And
like y'all mentioned on your last live, I remember Jesse mentioning that that's like the trending thing right now, the interdimensional. A lot of
mhm,
people are looking into that, which, that is like the hot topic right now as far as to cryptids and these strange things going on. But there's people like I mentioned, there's people that only believe it's flesh and blood. There's people that think it's demonic, only demonic and
mhm.
spiritual, and there's people that think that they're interdimensional, which is where the portals come in and the orbs and the UFOs appearing before or after their Bigfoot or Dogman encounter. You know what I mean? So that's why I mentioned that and see what y'all think about that.
Yeah, and there's a reason why interdimensional theory is getting so hot right now. It's because, I mean, for me, the all of these subjects changed when the U.S. government basically came out and admitted that UFOs are real. I mean, that's basically what they've done over the last few years with these UAPs. And then you start seeing the people that the government seems to take the most seriously with UFOs are people like Jacques Vallée, um, researchers like that who are just strictly in the interdimensional camp. That's what they think is going on. They don't think it's extraterrestrial at all. They think that these things are coming into our reality somehow, whether it's through portals or however you want to explain it away. But when you started seeing these people that were mostly focused on UFOs talking about the interdimensional theory, and then they start talking about flesh and blood creatures on the ground as well that don't seem like they belong here, that seem to show up sometimes along with these like UAPs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them. So it seems like the people that are in the best position to have the most knowledge on this subject are all leaning towards like interdimensional hypothesis right now. And for me, that makes the most sense on pretty much every aspect of like weird phenomena at this point. Like I said, we're to the point where we're as certain as you can be that dogmen exist without having a body on a slab
Oh yes,
to examine.
absolutely.
I mean,
Right.
they exist. That's all it is to it. But
Right.
that's the thing is that where are they going to? I mean, they're not a bunch of them are living above ground 24/7. And then you talk to witnesses, uh, and some of them just seem to act like a biological creature. Some of them seem to act more intelligent and demonic. And I mean, the experience that we had on our first LBL trip, when I got that thing on our thermal imager that looks like the witness descriptions of the dogmen that are in that area. The oversized pointy ears, the way it behaved, and all of that. That thing disappeared off my thermal. We think it ducked down into a gully that was right there, and then either just basically crouched down where we couldn't see it or moved off without us hearing it. We don't know. The thing might have just disappeared, you know? So I don't think anybody's got a real good handle on what these things are yet or what any of this, but I think we're all starting to kind of narrow down what it's not.
Right.
And that's where we're at right now. I mean, we've really started to, like I said, give more. I was not somebody who really looked at this from a spiritual standpoint in the past. Um, I've had to revise that thought process over the last few years because we've had things that happen that
Are not explainable by any other
yeah,
means.
not explainable by
Right.
any other method. So when you've eliminated the impossible, you're just left with what it might possibly be, even if it's something you previously thought couldn't exist.
So
Going back
so
to the,
yeah, go ahead. So go ahead,
going
Jesse.
back to the dog man subject, you know, you're talking about. Some people think that these are just strictly physical beings that are they're a malfunction of evolution. But you have so many witnesses telling stories about encountering these creatures and then having some sort of telepathic connection with them or feeling the evil come off of them, that they just know that what this is the embodiment of pure evil, and then there's a telepathic connection. So I think that these stories and what these people are talking about is a prime example of why these are not just a physical creature, that it's absolutely something beyond that.
And I want to chime in real quick because that's a great point. That whole thing when people experience a dog man and they seem to get that, sometimes it's an actual telepathic message that it seems like they get. Linda Godfrey talked about that a lot.
Mhm.
She'd have witnesses that would go, it was basically telling me it could take me if it wanted to, but it was going to let me go, but it could get me later. Or these feelings of just like, I felt so insignificant next to it. It just made me feel, well, why did it make you feel like that? Well, it's almost like I had a message in my head telling me how I was nothing compared to this creature. And this creature was so superior to me and it could take me whenever it wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked earlier about how people approach this phenomenon with just a real set of blinders on, and they're only looking at it as maybe a UFO investigator or a
Right.
ghost hunter or a big
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I wanted to know if you guys are open-minded like I am. I'm a very open-minded researcher. I look at everything every possible way around the spectrum, you know what I mean? I don't just like to stick to no, that's crap, no, that's not real, no, that's fake, whatever. No. I like to look into it like, 360 and see what the possibilities could be, right? So, and I think that you guys are the same way because I've seen y'all like very open-minded about, everything, yeah.
I'm on an online discussion forum, like a little private online discussion forum with Bigfoot researchers from all over mostly North America. There's a couple of guys from Australia on there as well, but it's just basically, it's all Bigfoot related. Well, there was a guy on there recently who had an experience. He saw these glowing eyes in the woods, and he said they were kind of slanted back a little bit. They were very wide apart. And he said, I could just tell that this thing meant me ill. Like it wanted me dead. It basically, I felt insignificant and da. I'm going, why did you think that? And he goes, it's like it was just telling me that without saying anything. And I'm like, well, what did you see beyond the eyes? And he's like, I just saw the eyes. They were red. They were pretty far apart. They were pretty high up. And everybody's just going, oh, it's just a Bigfoot, because these are Bigfoot researchers. That's all, any activity that people experience in the woods, they put back, the cause is going to be Bigfoot at this point. And I'm telling the guy, I'm going, well, there's another phenomenon out there that what you experienced is one of the key components of it. This kind of like implied threat, or this feeling of this thing could take me. It's not going to, but it might later on. You don't usually get that with a lot of Sasquatch reports. And I'm going, it's a possibility that you maybe encountered a dog man. I got laughed off the forum, man. These people are only opening into an undiscovered ape. Now, how is an undiscovered ape going to transmit those feelings to you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if anything else, this sounds more like spiritual or like demonic intimidation or something.
Right.
But those people aren't open to that. So what's going to happen is that case is not going to make it into the database. It's not going to get anywhere. It's just going to get shunted to the side because it's too weird.
And you can only get so far when you're doing research with such a closed mind. You can only get so far before you start to completely reject what you are being told. Now, if a witness is telling you something that they experienced, they saw, but you don't want to listen to what they have to say, you just stop the investigation right there in its tracks. And so you're never going to explore anything beyond that.
Exactly. Very well said, guys. Thank you. Hey, I have a question. It says it's from North American Dogman Project, Region 1, which I think is Shane. He says, a question for Joe and Jesse. Do they look for Bigfoot still? I know Joe said he used to only focus on Bigfoot.
How do we want to do this? To be honest with you, there's a couple things on this. There's a ton of people out there looking for Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying? I mean, out of all of the different phenomenon that are out there, there's more people looking for Bigfoot than probably anything else other than like ghost hunters maybe. But as far as like stuff that occurs like outside and kind of like, remote places, it's mostly Bigfoot hunters out there. So we still look into it as we come across it. We kind of take the viewpoint of this is that let's say somebody gets in contact with us and goes, hey, I wanted to talk to you guys. I was hiking in North Carolina and something was following at me, screaming at me from the tree line. And I started hearing these weird screams. I saw glowing eyes, Bigfoot hunters are going to go up there thinking it's just a Bigfoot. We'll approach it nowadays as that it could be like a number of things. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that we're specifically out there looking for Bigfoot. It's just that we're out there looking for any sort of anomalous activity. And we don't really make a call on what we think it is until we get there and start to actually look around with it then. One of the things I always like to say now that we've come to an understanding about Dogman, people will always go, well, why did Dogman only become, there's only recent sightings. And I'm like, there's sightings that go back, pretty much as long as there were people on the North American continent to report it. But one of the things I think is that it's more people are aware of that entity now. I think that a lot of like Sasquatch reports, people were actually seeing Dogman back in the past, but they didn't have anybody to report it to. I mean, you saw a large, dark, hairy creature with red eyes. Who are you going to report it to 10 years ago? You're going to report it to the PRO, and they're just going to assume it was a Bigfoot. So we still, I guess you could say we still look for Bigfoot. It's just that we don't go out specifically looking for Bigfoot.
Yeah.
We go into these areas where there's been reports of activity, and then just try to see what we experience and try to go from there then. So.
Right, exactly. Now imagine how many reports weren't reported, back in the 70s, back in the 80s, you know what I mean?
It still happens to this day unless it falls into a real carefully defined parameter of stuff. People laugh it off. I think my friend that runs Cryptid Response is on the chat right now. He had a case a few months ago where a guy got into one of the online cryptozoology groups on Facebook and tried to share his encounter, and they chased him off. They told him he was faking and everything like that. What he saw is this guy's not really into this sort of stuff. He doesn't have a background of it. He doesn't know what all the terms are. He was having something tall and skinny that looked like it had an elk skull for a head coming around his property. So this guy lives in Kentucky. So everybody starts going, oh, you're describing a Wendigo. A Wendigo only happens like, in the northern areas. You're making this stuff up. You're a liar. Chase the guy off. Well, Cryptid Response starts talking to this guy, and the guy sees it again, and he goes, it's really skinny. It's tall. It's got this patchy hair. He goes, it moves really quick. But he goes, I got a better look at it. It's wearing an elk skull as a mask on it. Now, if you go in, there's been reports of Bigfoot wearing skulls on. They're very few and far between, but they're there. So that's the thing, is that I think a lot of times people try to report this stuff, but if let's say they're doing a UFO report and then they also saw a Bigfoot, well, MUFON's not going to include that in the report, or they just won't take the report at all. You try to report a Bigfoot sighting to the BFRO, and maybe you saw weird lights, and then maybe you had weird activity follow you home, and now stuff's moving around your house by itself. They're going to either edit that report or kick it out. So if it's that difficult to make a weird report nowadays, think how difficult it was back then.
Oh,
so
yes.
I think a lot of stuff just goes unreported because people aren't willing to believe these people. So even people that are in the cryptid community aren't willing to believe these people.
No, and everything would just be completely fragmented at that point. There would be so many things that would just be thrown out.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that we haven't heard. There's so many reports that haven't been shared because of that. There's just such a lack of data as a result of people just kicking these reports out.
And I think that's the important thing about this whole UFO and disclosure thing that's going on. As you paid attention over the last couple of years, they've really associated Skinwalker Ranch with this stuff. So these guys that the government was paying money to look into UAPs and UFOs, well, they're also looking into stuff on the ground now because they're experiencing stuff on the ground. So now you're starting to hear people, legitimate scientists with a very impressive pedigree talking about the hitchhiker effect. They're out looking for UFOs, and then they start having what would be considered poltergeist activity happen around their house. So you're starting to finally hear a lot of this cross-spectrum weirdness kind of be discussed openly. So I think people are starting to become a little bit more aware that this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. You don't usually just have a Sasquatch encounter without other weird stuff going on. You don't have a UFO encounter without other weird stuff going on. So, and I think people are finally starting to be open and actually start to discussing that openly.
Right, exactly. Yes, very well said. Now, let me ask you guys something. Do y'all only do your own research, boots on the ground? Because I see that's what y'all, mainly do. Or do y'all have people call y'all or through email or messenger or whatever and tell you guys what their encounters that they had and where it was at to see if maybe you guys can check that out, because I know y'all like to go to different places where there's been many sightings or reports, right? I've seen y'all cover that,
Yeah.
right? And
we
so
get emails every day. We get emails every day. Now, generally, it's limited to the area that we can actually hit. I mean, if somebody contacts us from like Montana, I can't drive up there on Saturday and check it out. So we mostly focus on this kind of region, this Eastern Tennessee, Kentucky,
North Carolina,
South
Georgia.
Carolina, Georgia area. But yeah, we get reports like that all the time. And sometimes it's just a one-off. People go, hey, this has happened to me like a couple of months ago and nothing's happened since then. Other times people contact us and they've got ongoing activity that we go out and look into.
And we followed up on several reports. People will send us emails and we'll exchange emails back and forth. We'll fill them out. They'll share more information with us and we'll go to the area and check it out. We followed up on several reports. That's actually how we got in contact with Cryptic Response. That's how we actually became friends with him, because of a report that he made. And we'll follow up on those. And sometimes we'll be in an area and people will watch our videos because our channel has a variety of shows, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
We live stream. We do our boots on the ground expeditions. So you have video of us out there on expedition going to these places. And then you have our podcast where we talk about
many other things. Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen y'all have a big variety of topics that y'all talk about, including like black-eyed kids, black-eyed kids and stuff like that. I know y'all cover everything on your lives. I've seen that, and that's awesome.
We think it's all, to a certain degree, it's all intertwined somehow. You say some people that it's the same phenomenon with just different manifestations, different aspects. I don't know whether that's true or not. I just know that it seems like there's a lot of connections between a lot of this different activity that goes on. And I don't think any of it really exists in a vacuum. I think that when you really pay attention to it, you go in, let's say somebody's having what they consider Sasquatch activity around their house, and you start talking to them, and then you go, well, is there anything else weird that's happened around here? Sometimes they'll immediately tell you. Sometimes it takes a little coaxing, but then they'll be like, well, I don't want to sound crazy. We're already sitting here talking about a Bigfoot that's around your house, man. It's about as crazy as you can get. Lay it on me.
Right.
Well, I've been having some weird noises in the house, and I've been seeing some weird lights, and I saw a shadow figure in my hallway. And that's not all the time, but it's enough that you start to go, if this was just an undiscovered ape coming around this guy's house looking for food in the trash can, why did this other stuff start happening up at that point? And like I said, so it's not all the time, but it's enough for you to really kind of look at it and go, there's got to be some sort of connection here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, in terms of that too, you got to think about this is I don't think we will ever have all of the answers to anything. I don't think we're ever going to solve this mystery. Right. I think we get small pieces here and there. We get glimpses of the truth every now and then. But this is like a 1,000-piece puzzle, and we barely have one piece right now. So there's so much. We have so far to go with what we're doing. But I think that as we kind of turn these keys on this and sort of unlock some of these doors, that we learn something every day, and every expedition we go on, we learn something new and we experience something new, and it sort of adds to the whole picture.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, thank you guys. Thank you for teaching us so much tonight. I'm loving this, man, and I see the chat is too. Yeah, man, I think it's so complex, the whole topic of cryptids, paranormal, UFOs, all, like I say, they're all, connected in some way, right? And another thing too is that we can only speculate on why, like I mentioned before, right? Where I think that there's like 3 different types, right, of cryptids or whatever, and the meaning behind it, what people think they're seeing, maybe demonic, maybe interdimensional, maybe flesh and blood that they think, and they might not even be any of that. See what I'm saying? We just think that's what it could be. See what I'm saying? We just like. We put all the information we gathered throughout the years together, and then kind of like, okay, well, this is probably what's going on here. This is probably what's going on there. You know what I mean? And we just kind of like label things, but we're not 100% sure about it. You know what I mean? Because it's like you guys said, y'all have seen people, tell y'all about their encounters, whether it be paranormal, whether it be cryptid sighting or whatever. And basically, and in this whole game in general, we have to take their word for it. See what I'm saying? Basically,
that's the thing that
because we
gets me.
weren't there when it happened. See what I'm saying?
And that's one of my pet peeves with this is
Yeah.
that, and I understand why, because like I said, 10 years ago, if we'd had this conversation, I would have told you all about the Bering Sea land bridge and Gigantopithecus and explained to you why I thought Bigfoot was just an undiscovered ape. Okay. I would have taken you through all of that. I would have
Right.
talked to you about how quickly a body breaks down in North American forests, all of that jazz. And then about 8 years ago, I would have talked to you about how I think it's a relic hominid. I think it's probably closer to like Homo sapiens or Neanderthal than it is to like a monkey. Nowadays, I'm sitting here talking to you about portals and everything like that. But I understand why people get like that, because so much of this stuff is unknown. I mean, we get contacted almost daily from people going, you don't know what you're doing. This is what's going on here. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? It seems like you have all this figured out. I mean, well, I just know. Well, I mean, no, that's not
Right.
good enough.
Exactly. No.
If
Yeah.
you're gonna tell me from a position of being an expert, tell me how you gained this expert knowledge. And I understand why, because this is a confusing topic. And like you said, it's complex. I mean, just the research we have to do on like secondary topics over the course of a week. We carry a lot of weird equipment with us, man. I had to do like a deep dive down into infrasound and how sound works and bioacoustics. Looking at like, how biological organisms give off electromagnetism, just different stuff like that. And it's confusing and it's frustrating. And it seems like every time you learn one thing, another possibility opens up to you, and you've got to try to learn that as well. So I understand why people want to be able to just take this stuff and put it into a little box, because it's easier to understand then. It makes your head hurt sometimes, man.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we look at this and just go, what are we doing? Because we describe it like a spider web. You don't follow a straight road. You're just constantly
Just
branching off
everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
I understand the attractiveness of being able to just put it in a box and put a label on it and go, this is what it is. To me, it's like the more we learn about it, the weirder it gets.
Yes.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, we had that experience last weekend that we talked about on the live stream, when we were up in an area and we were leaving because the area that we've been investigating with that weird tree where we caught that weird
Right.
audio at wasn't
Right.
much going on that night. So we were leaving out of the mountains and we went past a spot and we both just kind of looked at each other and like, let's check this area out to see what it's like, and maybe we'll come back here next weekend. Well, we saw that light. We don't know what it was. We don't know how to describe it. We don't know if we saw a UFO, if we saw a portal, what we saw. But I mean, it was up close. We've seen several lights in the woods, so much so that it's not even really a big deal to us anymore, seeing these like little will-o-wisps or spook lights, they usually call them.
Yeah.
But
And
those are small lights. This
Very
was-
small.
this was
was
big.
huge.
This was big, and it was up close. And there were figures around it, around the basement.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell what they were, if they were people or what. But
Wouldn't that be considered an orb though? If it's
it
bigger?
was bigger than an orb, man. This was
we
big.
estimate this, whatever this was, we estimate it to be about 10 to 12 feet in diameter.
Almost the size of a car, man.
Yeah, we it's
Wow.
huge.
And we got it on we have a little tiny full spectrum action cam that we use that works great, but it's just for short range. And the fact that we were able to get it at all from about 75 yards away,
Yeah.
maybe or so, shows how big and bright it was. I mean, it was huge. And we watched it lifted up a little bit, and that's when I realized there were people or something in front of it. We got it all on film. We're gonna release it.
Well, there's another thing to this too. Is I actually I was absolutely flabbergasted by what I was looking at. I'm looking at this thing, and you can hear us in the video. When we release the video, you have got to see it. But he and I are both like, "What is this? What is this?" I had the presence of mind to pull out my thermal. I had my thermal in the case on my hip, on my belt. I pulled it out. I fired that up, and I started recording with the thermal. Now, when I pointed the thermal at it, it was putting off heat, and you'll be able to see that because I have video of that. We were simultaneously recording with the full spectrum camera as well as the thermal, but it was putting off massive amounts of heat. Whatever this thing was just producing heat. And the
Man.
fact that we have simultaneous footage of whatever this was with the full spectrum and the thermal, I was what I like for us. What a lucky get on that.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
weird because I'm a foot
Absolutely.
taller than she is, so I had a different
Mm-hmm.
vantage point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
could see these figures around the base of it. You could kind of see it in the video a little bit. A couple times the light reflects off of what's moving around it. I thought it was people moving around the base of it at first.
Mm-hmm.
So it lifts up a little bit and it starts kind of like lifting up into the trees like a little bit. Well, I don't know where those figures are. So I'm like, we need to get out of here. I mean, I don't know what's around it. If it's like Bigfoot, if it's, I mean, aliens, I don't know, man. So we left out and you can kind of see it occasionally on our camera as we're getting out because we kept rolling. It starts going up higher and higher and higher until it disappears. I don't know what that is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I was a UFO investigator, I would say, oh, I saw a UFO.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a paranormal investigator, I'd say we saw like an orb or something like that. I don't know what it is. We don't know how to describe it at this point. We think it was some sort of portal activity. I don't know at this point. We're going out. We went out the next day and checked the area out with some instrumentation and got some weird readings. It was elevated radiation. We were picking up stuff on our tri-field meter. We're going back out this weekend. Matter of fact, when we get off here with you, we're going to get packed up and head out tomorrow and be out there for a while and kind of stake that area out for a few days and see what else we find. But
Cool.
it just, that doesn't have for me looking at this, that doesn't fit into any of the normal boxes. I don't know what it could have been. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's an orb. Maybe it's an orb unlike what we've ever seen before. Maybe
Well,
sort of
you know why I say that, Joe. You know why I say that because I have a friend. His name is Steven Siegel. He was in here tonight. He goes by Dark Woods also on
I've seen him on. Yeah.
Yeah, he was mentioning that his comments or his questions weren't popping up, and he kind of got bothered and left, whatever. But I'll talk to him about that later. I don't know how that
What's
happened.
weird is that same thing happened to him on our channel. He
Yeah,
was on
that's what he
commenting one
said.
night that his questions were dropping off for some reason. So
Yeah, that's what he said. So, and I didn't even see his questions at all. I mean, I didn't see them to be there and then taken off. I didn't see that. But anyway, what I'm trying to get into is that he showed me a picture of a Bigfoot inside of I don't know if it was portal or orb. It looked like a perfectly round shape, like size of I don't know. I'm gonna say about the size of a basketball. I want to say maybe a little bigger, and it looked like a perfect water drop. You know what I mean? And you can see the Bigfoot standing there looking at him sideways like that. I'm like, wow. He said, do you see what that is? I'm like, no. He said, zoom in. I zoomed in. I said, oh shit, is that a Bigfoot inside that thing? He's like, yep. Yeah, he said, I think that might be either an orb that, it floats around in or a portal that it comes in and out of.
Yeah.
See what I mean? So I'm like,
And-
wow.
And
that was
normal Bigfoot
crazy.
researchers are just gonna like look at you like you're crazy. You know what I'm saying? They don't
Yeah.
want to hear that.
Right, exactly. They'd be like, oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
If you look at some of the reports that have come out of like Skinwalker Ranch, or some of the they have government research scientists and intelligence operatives who have been hired from the government to look into UAPs and Skinwalker Ranch, they tell crazier stories than that. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
you start to go, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's the thing, is I think that's why a lot of people dismiss this stuff. It may not make sense to us, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
I mean, obviously the world's a lot weirder than when we thought it was.
Yeah.
Be
Much
looking at
weirder,
this stuff in the
yes.
first place. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I talk about it sometimes. There was a parapsychologist. There was a lady that did a lot of like ghost research and everything like that. But she actually had a medical background as well. She had a background as an actual classically trained psychologist. She talked about what she called the boggle threshold, where your mind is okay up to this point, but anything beyond that point, your mind just boggles. You just can't accept it.
Right.
And I'm going, that's like such an arbitrarily created line. What you might find impossible, I might find completely possible. So,
Right. Exactly.
and it's I think that people are just not willing to kind of look beyond their own preconceived notions on this stuff. Like Bigfoot people, I'm willing to believe that there's a 8-foot tall undiscovered ape in North America that we can't seem to get clear footage of since the 60s. We've never found a body. We can't really get any evidence of it. It seems to be able to do things that no other creature on the earth can.
Yeah.
I'll accept that, but if you tell me that you see one coming out of an orb, I'm gonna think you're crazy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So everybody's got their own little boggle threshold.
And you know why? And you know why? Because that's unheard of.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
why.
So, yeah,
It's like if I tell you, and you're gonna think I'm crazy. Man, I was in my car, and a Bigfoot came out from behind my car, waved at me, and took off into the woods. Are you gonna believe me? No, because that's unheard of. You know what I'm saying? But what if it did really happen? See what I mean? So.
And it's weird because especially if you look into like UFO cases have had more serious people looking into them for longer than almost anything else that's going on. So a lot of times I'll look at UFO cases. Some of the UFO reports don't make any sense at all. I mean, they're the equivalent of that. They just seem ridiculous. Why would a creature from another planet that came here in an advanced spaceship do this, behave this way? Jacques Vallée and John Keel both talked about it, that they thought that the phenomena acted ridiculous on purpose. So it was kind of like part of its armor, that it was armored in the ludicrous, is what Jacques Vallée said. So that you would experience this, but if you tried to tell anybody, nobody would believe you.
So in other words, basically you're saying they were playing dumb.
Exactly. Well, you see about that with the Men in Black too. A lot of times, those Men in Black cases, people will say they behave in such a weird fashion, and they might be doing that so that when people try to tell the story,
it sounds fantastic.
Nobody else will believe them. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
That ridiculousness might be on purpose. You know
yeah, absolutely. And you know what, too? I'm always saying this with my comrades, my fellow comrades, Shane and Tom, that I think that they let us talk about this and not so much. I mean, a video, they will take down, because if it's kind of believable, they're gonna take it down right away. But they let us talk all we want and talk about all our theories we want, because they do that on purpose to make the people think that we're crazy. Yeah, they're not going to believe them anyway. Just let them be. Let them do their shows on what their thoughts are about these cryptids and UFOs and paranormal stuff. You know what I mean? That's what I think is going on. That's why they haven't shut us down.
Well, I think they go one step beyond that. Is that back in the 50s, we know that like Air Force intelligence, the Air Force was basically taking the frontal role with like UFO investigation. They would send Air Force intelligence people to like UFO meetings, you know what I'm saying, for like just amateur UFO groups. And they were there to do a couple of things. They were there to kind of keep tabs, see who was involved with it, see what they knew, hear the witness accounts. They were also there to kind of like spread chaos, to kind of like stir up drama in the groups and everything like that as well. So I think that they let us talk about as much as we want to, but I think that every once in a while, some of the drama that you see kind of like come up in the cryptid community, I think a lot of that's manufactured sometimes, man. I think a lot of that is to kind of keep us all disjointed, kind of keep everybody at each other's throats as opposed to sharing information and all that. So I think they let us talk, but I think that sometimes if we start to talk too much about the right stuff, they send somebody along to kind of get us off track then. So,
and it wouldn't be the first time that the government or higher powers of any kind of, or the higher ups or anything like that, would throw out disinformation agents or agent provocateurs to shake up any kind of system.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It's not just in terms of the cryptid or paranormal world. They do it in many systems and many subjects and many departments. And so that's something that has a long track record of happening, but well outside of the paranormal world as well.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I agree with you guys. Hey, I'd like to ask y'all a couple of questions that have been popping up, and we've been going
go ahead.
deep into stuff that I haven't really had time to. But the first one is spiritual encrypted encounters. That's my buddy Abe Cius. He's asking, have y'all ever had energy drained or followed home by a disembodied demonic Nephilim, which are the ones where they're spiritual and demonic, where they only appear like halfway, like you only see like half their body and whatever. Those are the ones that he's talking about. Have y'all ever seen anything like that? And have y'all ever felt any type of energy being drained when y'all out there?
We've had psychological and physical ramifications from doing the work that we do. In the field and at home afterwards. So we've had sort of like a hangover effect after getting back from field investigations. Many times we have to cleanse the house. I have to go through because we'll be back from an investigation, and for the next few days around the house, we'll start to see shadow people. Things will start to move on their own in the house. His phone flipped off the couch the other day, and
Yeah.
so we have to go through the steps of spiritual protection that we do before we go out, and also when we return. Now, in terms of the physical effects that have happened, we've been out in the field, and I have completely blacked out before, and stood there, and I was completely gone.
Wow.
We were in a place called Panthertown Valley, and that was probably the incident that started us on the path to starting Hellbent Holler in the first place.
Wow.
And it was one of the most impactful things that ever happened to me.
Did you feel your energy just drop and
I
make
I
you like
I
faint or
blacked
what?
out.
She
Yeah.
like, yeah, we were. What it was is
Wow.
that we had just relocated back up to this area. We'd met in New Orleans, so we'd been living in New Orleans for years. New Orleans has got a lot of dark, mystical, weird stuff about it as well. But we both moved back up here. We are both from the Appalachians originally. So we
Hmm.
came up here and we basically started to, like I said, I'd done Bigfoot research in different parts of the South. She had been involved in paranormal stuff. We went out to an area called Panthertown because we'd heard a guy on a podcast um, talk about the shape shifting witch that he had experienced up there. And it was a really, shape shifting witch sounds crazy, but his story sounded very authentic. It sounded the guy seemed like he believed what he was saying. So we
Right.
went up there and checked it out. And this is before we'd started the channel. This was kind of what made us start the channel.
Okay.
Um, we went up there. We had weird stuff happen. Like our GPSs stopped working. We found we went down a path and then we backtracked and somebody or something had laid out these wooden symbols in the path that we had just gone over. Anyway, we made it up to the area. We were almost to the area where the guy had the sighting of the witch or whatever he called it. And we were running out of light. We had to turn back around. It was taking us a lot longer because our GPS wasn't cooperating with us. We came back through and we're crossing this pretty broad stream. I cross over fine. I turn around and look at her and she's just stopped in the middle of the stream at this point. And literally her eyes are glazed. She's kind of swaying like this. Now she's on a bunch of slippery rocks at this point, So I'm concerned that she's gonna just fall and hurt herself at this point. I asked her what's wrong, and she just goes, "I don't feel good," and even her voice sounds weird. So I drop my pack real quick and then just reach out and grab her and basically just haul her over to my side of the water. Once she got on dry land, she just snapped to. She didn't know how she got there. She was nauseous afterwards. She got sick.
Yeah.
Um,
But the further I got away from that creek,
she was fine.
I was fine.
They're
I got
fine.
away from that creek and I was fine.
So what's weird, Carlito, is that we started looking into that area, and there's a wilderness therapy place that takes place up there where they take troubled kids out.
Hmm.
And we find that that's a common theme in a lot of these areas that we go to where we find strange activity. A lot of
Wow.
times there's these wilderness therapy things that take place in that same area. Anyway, a kid had escaped from there a couple years before, and they found him dead in that creek at the exact spot where she blacked out at. And what's
Ooh.
weird is when they found him, he's in a creek. There's no trees around. They found him. He had broken legs, a broken pelvis, and they said it looked like he fell from a great height. And I'm going, well, where did he fall from? There's no trees through there.
Right.
And he was dead. And as best we can tell, it was in that exact same spot that we used to
Had
call
that
it
blackout.
being zapped or whatever. But yeah, I mean, she was out of it. But what's weird is that the further we got away from that spot, she was fine.
Yeah.
She was just fine. We've had equipment drained before.
Yeah.
Wow.
We go out, we're real well prepared with spare batteries, chargers, and all that.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at that last LBL video we did, we went into that area, Station 16. We were able to get out with one camera and one small flashlight. Everything else was drained out. I mean, we got back and literally everything, fresh batteries that usually last for hours, just got evaporated. They were just dead. Some
Right,
of the
right.
batteries never worked again. I had to pitch a few
Yeah.
batteries from that trip that
Yep.
were And I'm
Now, like they go dead. Like they don't work anymore. You can't even recharge them anymore.
Charge, you
Yeah.
put them in, the charger wouldn't even register them.
And it's not even like a gradual drain, like your flashlight starts
Right.
to
It's just
get a little dimmer.
Yeah.
It's just gone.
super. Yeah.
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 It was just
You know
gone.
what? You know what? That's fun because of a good friend of mine. He's also a researcher, guys. His name is Paul Chafin. He's from Kentucky. He goes to the Daniel Boone National Forest.
Yeah.
And he says his batteries drain real fast. I'm like, really,
Yeah.
dude? He's like, yeah, bro. He said, I said, what if we take a GoPro or something? Because he uses like his phone and like regular camera. I said, what about a GoPro? He's like, dude, don't even think about a GoPro. It'll eat up your batteries like that. GoPro's batteries don't last that long to begin with. And if you take them in there, they're going to be gone in 10 minutes. I'm like,
yeah.
what? Are you serious?
We actually have it's like a camera handle. It's basically like a stick about this long. It's a backup battery source, right? It's
But that you can mount your camera on
and
as
then
like
plug it up into it, and so it's a lot of backup. We carried 2 of those like screwed together just to make sure, and that's how. If you saw that last LBL video, that's how we were able to film going out. We went through the camera battery, one big battery backup, and the second big battery backup was almost dead by the time we got out of there. It just sucked it down. If we had just had a regular camera, we would have had nothing.
Yeah.
And like I said, I usually handle the equipment with doing this stuff. Jesse does like all the video editing and a lot of the actual evidence review. I'm religious about batteries. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I order a constant stream of batteries in because there's nothing more frustrating than being out and having weird stuff happen and you can't capture it on like audio or video. And a lot of these were brand new batteries that they just died in that area and they never started back up again.
Yeah.
It's just, and then we go into other areas, we never have that problem, you know, so.
Right. What do you guys think that could be? Could it be like a radiation type thing or a maybe a frequency type thing going on?
I think that a lot of this stuff, it's something that we talk about that it's a little different than a lot of the other researchers do. We did a show on this. Like, I don't think infrasound is what's going on out there with people claiming to be zapped and everything like that. Because infrasound wouldn't have an effect on electronics as well. If you look at people like Martin Groves, who I know you're familiar with his story, the symptoms that Martin and his hunting partner had, that's not infrasound sensitivity. Martin Groves sounds like he got hit with like ionizing radiation. You know what I'm saying? And again, that pretty much precludes this from being just a natural animal that learned how to walk on 2 legs.
Yes.
We pick up weird EMF spikes sometimes out in areas where you shouldn't have it. So for me, I think to overly simplify it, I think a lot of times that when you interact with these entities, Sasquatch, Dogman, whatever, they have a lot more similarities with like a UFO encounter. You know, you hear about UFO encounters where the car batteries go dead, stuff like that happens.
Or people have, they have incidents of cancer after
radiation burns, everything like that. I think that there's some sort of weird, if you get a really strong EMF field, like an EM field, okay, that can have an effect on batteries. That'll drain your batteries really quickly. That can make you get sick. That can affect you on a cellular level.
Okay, now let me ask you this. You guys, I'm pretty sure y'all have heard of cryptids being able to blur out the pictures or videos when they're taking them, right? Do you think that might have something to do with that too, with the batteries?
I do think it has the effect of, especially one of the things we've heard about is that it seems like people sometimes talk about how analog stuff, analog audio,
better,
analog film seems like it works better. And I'll go, is that how they were able to catch the Patterson-Gimlin footage? Because they were using actual film. We're out like trying to record onto like SD cards. Everything's digital.
Maybe we should go back to Polaroid or 35 millimeter.
Well, we actually talked about trying to get a tape-to-tape like audio recorder to take it out with us to some areas to see what sort of results we get to that compared to the digital audio recorder.
Yeah, the ones with the little small tapes in there, right? Like reporters used to use back in the day. Yeah.
Or those old real ones, man, that are like really sensitive. Try to get something like that out there. But that's one of the things I think of is that we're approaching a phenomenon that apparently gives off electromagnetic radiation and we're using electronics to try to document it, and I think that sometimes maybe they control more of that playing field than maybe we do.
I see us like walking around the woods with a reel-to-reel like Hans Holzer.
Exactly, like the old the couple ghost hunting couple.
Oh Oh, the Warrens.
Yeah, the Warrens and Han Holzer. But we've thought about doing that, trying to maybe take like an old school approach to it. And that's our big thing too that we try to do is we try to do a lot of different stuff. Like we try to do that scent experiment at the LBL. You know what I'm saying? You know,
right. I saw that. I love that.
We try to do stuff like that. Like so we've talked about how in some of these areas with cryptids, like batteries tend to drain. You know, they're affecting the EM field. Well, I built a couple of EM pumps. If you take like a EMF detector and hold it up next to them, it levels out. These things generate up an electromagnetic field. I want to take that out into the woods, see if we can draw anything in with it, man. Maybe
really pump the electromagnetic energy into the environment and see if it'll assist in whatever is trying to drain the batteries to do this out to manifest or if it'll draw something in.
Yeah, so I mean, we're all about trying to do like stuff that just think outside the box, and it may not work, man. Not all of it, you know. But if it doesn't work, we'll put it back to the drawing board and we'll try something else at that point. But there's enough people out there just banging on trees with sticks and doing that. We don't need to do that, man. There's enough people doing that. We don't even really try to cast footprints. There's enough people. There's enough cast footprints out there, man. We try to do stuff that maybe nobody else is doing to see if we can try to, you know, take a different approach and maybe get some different results. So.
Right. Hey, I'm a little backed up on the questions. Actually, I have another one before this one, but this one right here really caught my attention. It says, is Al Sander, he's referring to the orb that you guys saw. He said, what did the thermal say the temperature was on the orb?
It doesn't have a temperature readout. It's we were using an AGM handheld thermal monocular. Okay. And we've seen orbs, we've seen, you know, ghost lights, spook lights, whatever you want to call them. None of them have ever given off heat before, and none of them have ever been this big.
No, and I had the settings on red hot, so you'll have a black and white image, so everything else around it. But the hottest thing within the field of view is going to show up red. Yeah. So I use that because as I scan around the woods, I can get an instant alert of whatever is producing the most heat in that area. And so I had it on that so I can instantly check it out. I had looked around 3 times with that and saw nothing.
This just came out of nowhere all of a sudden.
And then all of a sudden I see it and I pull my thermal back out and I look and there it is. And you have that red hot signature right there on there.
Right. Okay. Hey, I had another question. I can't remember who it was, and it's too far up for me to scroll up to look for it. But he said, "Have y'all ever did any researching and investigating with other investigators?"
Not really. We have a friend who lives near us that she's basically a ghost hunter. She's gone out with us in a couple of areas, but it's difficult to do with other people. Just because, again, most of the people that are in our area, there are people that do Bigfoot hunting, but they don't want to hear our crazy ideas, man. They want to do Bigfoot hunting. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like when I go, hey, let's take these EMF pumps and like, you know, put them down in this thing and then like retreat back and like watch and see what shows up. They're not down for that, man. You know.
I think also you and I have a really good system, and it's really hard to bring somebody else into the system. He and I have been together for 9 years, 8-9 years. So we're around each other all the time, and we know how to operate together in the woods. We can communicate without even talking. We have hand signals. We trust each other because we always go out in the woods armed. Both of us carry 10mm Glocks and in our chest rigs. But we go out there armed, and throwing a person in there that you don't quite know and don't quite trust in an armed situation in the middle of the woods where scary things are happening seems like a recipe for disaster. So I think that he and I have a good system. We work very well together, and we've kind of developed that over the years. But also, it seems like the phenomenon likes to present itself when there's fewer people around. If you have a large group out there, I think the phenomenon is going to present itself as readily as it would to 2 people.
Yeah, you hear about those paid Bigfoot expeditions where people like drop $500 a pop to go out on this, and that's great because you know what, some of these people, and that might be the only way they can safely go out. But then they're upset because nothing happened. And I'm going, well, you know, you're with like 40 people, you're in the woods, you know, that's maybe not the best thing to do. It does seem to be right. The few times we've taken like 1 or 2 other people with us, we experience far less, it seems like. But there are areas, trust me, there are areas you see us on the camera sometimes go, man, I wish we had other people with us right now, because sometimes it's difficult for two people, man. You know, we're
Yeah.
moving through the woods at night, we're juggling equipment, we've got stuff that we need in our backpack. That means we've got to stop, take it out. You know,
Yeah.
Right.
it's not like we've got a crew there. There's just two of us, so it
Right.
gets difficult sometimes, man. So
And no, I believe y'all. Y'all are absolutely right. That's when it most happens, when it's only one or two people, as opposed to 10 or more. You know what I mean? It really doesn't happen. A big gathering, it doesn't happen. And I think they're smart enough to know that. No, that's a big
it's
group. You don't want to
it
get
is
close to that. You know what I mean?
all this stuff, no matter what it is intelligently controlled somehow. If you If you go back to, because it's weird, because over the last few years, a lot of the topics that I didn't really pay much attention to, I've had to kind of just immerse myself in and get a little bit of knowledge, because we're experiencing some of this stuff. John Keel would talk about, when he's looking into UFO cases, that the UFO activity always seemed to happen in the middle of the night and in the middle of nowhere, where there were fewer people to witness it. Now, occasionally it
Right.
would happen out, like the Phoenix lights, where a lot of people would see it.
Yeah.
But it's like that with cryptid activity too. Like you were talking about, like a Bigfoot coming out from behind your car and waving at you. It's like it knew it was just you there,
Yeah.
and it could do this, and you can tell this story as much as you want to.
Nobody's
gonna
gonna believe you. Exactly.
And then you look at, like, we talk about how it all ties in. Look at the missing 411 phenomenon, where people talk about how there's two people hiking together, and the guy just turned around for a second, and then he turns back around and his
It's
partner's
gone.
gone.
Yeah.
And it's that point of separation. It's almost like whatever this is knows the exact right moment to do it, knows the exact right moment that it can, I don't want to say get away with it, but like we talk about, like portals and things coming from interdimensional and all that. You don't see these portals opening up in Times Square on like a busy Friday afternoon in front
Right.
of 10,000 people and a bunch of security cameras.
Right.
It's like it's selective in where it occurs at.
Yeah,
It's
they
like
know.
It wants an audience, but it wants the audience that it wants. It wants a small audience.
Chooses,
you know what I'm saying?
chooses where, yeah, absolutely. Hey, I have another question. This from Steve Riley. Says, have y'all been contacted by certain agency? If so, have they tried to bully you?
Not really.
Has it happened at all?
We
Or have y'all
had-
gotten a sense of that, like somewhere that
We've
y'all
never
showed
had any-
up or something? No.
We haven't had anybody show up for that. We haven't had anybody show up like at our front door with badges going, "We're taking this Bigfoot footage from you," or we're taking this. We've gotten contacted by some people that seemed like there was an agenda, that it seemed almost like it was a plant for something like that.
Are you talking about the visit from the three-letter agency?
We did get visited by the FBI one time, but that's a different story. At least we think that's a different story. But yeah, for stuff like that, no. But like I mean, what are they going to do? You know what I'm saying? We don't have that smoking gun piece of evidence.
Right, exactly.
We have gotten contacted by people that it felt like there was something off about the person. Like maybe that was somebody pretending to be a witness or an experiencer. That's happened a couple times
And it seems like they're trying to weasel in and gain your trust.
Yeah. We've had some weird stuff happen. There's a area in Kentucky that I was doing a lot of research on that we haven't talked about yet openly. I was doing a lot of research on it, and it's something else that nobody else is really talking about. There's some weird stuff going on there. I was talking to, I think it was Jody Cook one night, and he had an area near there where some activity was going on, dogman activity. And I went to go back and reference my notes, and all my notes are gone. All my notes are gone, man. Now, this was just on Google Docs, but everything else is there except for the notes that I had on this particular location. That's always bugged me. Always bugged me, because I was updating those fairly regularly. I had 3 copies of it saved in different spots. All of them just left. They just went away. No sign of them. Everything else is there. Now, keep in mind that maybe that's human error. Maybe I did something, but why only in this one particular spot, and why everything that I had on there? So that was odd. That's always kind of.
I think that's going to cause us to sort of go back to this analog thing. We're going to probably go back to more physical files after that incident, after all of that research just disappeared. We're talking about going back to a more physical file system when it comes to our case files, instead of using the digital format, because there's something about this digital versus analog thing. I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe the accessibility, that you just, I don't know, but it's kind of weird how that relates to that as well.
Right. No, absolutely. And somebody, I think it was Tom from North Carolina or Cryptid, says he said it's a what? It's a hitchhiker effect. Have y'all ever heard of that?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, and it's weird because a lot of people have experienced that. We've experienced that before there was a name for it. This is something that doesn't really get talked a lot about in the cryptid community, which I find odd, but again, it ties back to the UAP phenomenon, like what they call UFOs nowadays. They've got some really serious scientists that are talking publicly, Gary Nolan, Jacques Vallée, and all that, that are talking about the UAP phenomenon. And they're not just talking about things in the sky, they're talking about creatures on the ground. I mean, that was part of all of the declassified documents they brought out of, as far as like the UAP investigations. Well, they had people that were looking into reports of werewolves on the ground around Skinwalker Ranch. And they first termed that thing hitchhiker effect, where you go and you look into. So if a UFO is just a spaceship from another planet and you see it or you have a close encounter with it, then why do you start seeing shadow figures in your house? Or why do you start having things move around? Or you start seeing strange lights around your house? It followed you home. It hitchhiked along. And that's a lot more prevalent, I think, than a lot of people are willing to admit. I think sometimes they explain it away, that it's just their imagination. Or sometimes they never put two and two together, that maybe that was the cause of that. But we've definitely had it. We had We had it after the second LBL trip. And the spot in North Georgia, when things started getting really weird up there, we really started to see it. We've had 4 things move in our house by themselves that we've noticed. And I'm not talking about like something shifting. I'm talking about stuff flying away on its own. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. In full view, not out of the corner of your eye. We started having like shadow figures in the house, hearing weird stuff. We live in the woods, so we would start seeing like weird stuff in the woods, weird shapes and stuff like that. So it's real. You have to think that, is it because you're more open to it now and it's able to come in easier, or is there literally something latching onto you? I don't know, but yeah, we've experienced it. Other people have experienced, man.
Or do you think, Joe, that a lot of people we have a lot better technology now. Now, a lot of people have phones. Everybody has a phone, really, nowadays. Whereas to back in the days, only people with money had phone. No, I'm sorry, 90s. 90s, only people with money had phones. Certain people, early 2000s, somewhat, a little bit more. But now it's like everybody has a phone, and everybody has, to like, at least to take a recording of audio or a picture of something that they think they see, or like people that they hear something and they just take all these random pictures, and come to find out they go home and they do find something there. You know what I mean? Exactly. Where they can't see with their bare eyes, but they take a lot of pictures and they see them. But that's the technology helping you, or else you wouldn't even have known what it was.
And then on the flip side of that, sometimes though, because you always hear that argument about, well, Dogman's not real, Sasquatch isn't real. Everybody's got a cell phone camera nowadays. Why don't we have more footage?
Yes.
Hey, the footage is out there. A lot of people don't share it because they know they're going to get ridiculed.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that you see something just for like a split second. It's difficult to open up your camera app, pick it up, get it focused, and take that photo before it leaves. I mean, we're walking around with cameras at the ready. You know what I'm saying? And we miss stuff.
Yeah.
The craziest audio that we ever heard with our own ears, we missed because we were recharging our camera and we'd stopped to get something to eat. We were taking a break, We heard this, and as it started up, it was so weird. We just looked at each other, and then it was a scramble, but we had a couple of seconds of being shocked, and we're out there looking for it. Imagine how shocked a person would be who
was not expecting or looking for
it,
this.
So a lot of times they, that argument, why isn't there more footage, doesn't carry a lot of weight for me, because it's difficult to do it in the heat of the moment sometimes. So
Right. And no, and another thing is too is they're quick to say, and I say they because I never do it. They're
Yeah.
quick to say, "Oh, this is bull, crap, whatever. No, this is too blurred out. No, that it's what do they call it? Pareidolia.
Yeah.
Or you know what you recorded it's a damn coyote. It's not what It's like, dude, why don't you get out there and take your own recordings and take your own pictures and see what you can bring to the table? You know what I mean? Instead of just
And a lot of that's just human nature,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't believe it and it's never happened to you. I mean, Jesse
Right.
says it all the time.
Exactly. That's the thing. That's their mentality. You don't believe it until you see it because it
Every
hasn't happened to you. Mm-hmm.
Jesse says every skeptic is just one experience away from being a knower, knowing that things are out there.
Exactly.
We hear it all the time, man. I have people tell us all the time that I used to think all this was crazy until this happened to me. But it's weird because people want answers. People like to understand the world. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of real mysteries out there if you approach the world from a normal standpoint. Everybody carries these little pocket computers around. You've got the sum of human knowledge basically at your fingertips. With these cell phones, people don't like mysteries in the world anymore, man. So if they're presented with something that poses a mystery to them, they need to explain it, even if that explanation doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying?
Otherwise,
Right.
they have to admit that they were completely wrong about how they thought the world worked.
Exactly.
I mean, because you start to open yourself up to that, then the possibilities are almost endless for stuff like that.
Exactly.
And I think that's why a lot of people do that, man. I mean, a lot of people will look at, because we've all seen the footage that's on Facebook and different stuff. Some of it's better than others, but at the same token, like you said, we weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what maybe that person was there, saw it with their own two eyes, got the best footage they can. So when they look at it, I don't see anything, but I wasn't there. They looked at it. It's fresh in their mind. It's burned in their mind at this point. So they look at it. It's plain as day. Like I said, man, I mean, it's you catch a lot of flack for doing stuff like that. Even on cryptid groups, putting these images up. Who wants to subject themselves to all that torment for no reason at all?
Right.
I mean, there's no safe spaces out there for this stuff. I mean, you put footage like that up, 9 out of 10 people on social media are going to attack you. That's not enjoyable to deal with,
Yeah, and another thing, it doesn't matter how good it is or how real it is. They're still going to say it's fake. They're still going to say it's pareidolia.
Well,
They're still going to say it's
I
BS.
tie a lot of stuff into the UAP phenomenon, UFOs, because there's been validation of that. Okay, if you thought 20 years ago the government was ever going to come out and admit that there's things in the sky and they don't know where they come from and we can't behave in the same manner that they do, and it seems like they're violating the laws of physics and we can't stop them, but they're there. Nobody ever thought the government was going to admit that,
And that they're funneling millions of dollars
into researching it. But
they're keeping it secret.
Yeah, the government was never going to admit that, and now they've come out and they've admitted it. So you'll have you've seen the videos that are out there, Tic Tac, all the stuff that they've released.
Yeah.
So you have Commander Fravor, who was the Navy fighter pilot that got I think he got the Tic Tac footage. This guy is like the best fighter pilot of his generation. He ran the Top Gun school, like the Tom Cruise thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's trustworthy enough to be given like a $30 million jet. Okay.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And he's sitting there telling you, I saw something that's not from this world. And he has people online telling him, no, you saw a party balloon, man. You saw a balloon. And I'm going, I'm
that's
going,
crazy.
Is anybody qualified to tell you?
It would be him.
This dude right here.
Yeah, exactly.
But they'll still attack him. He was mistaken. He saw a kid's party balloon. You don't know what you saw a seagull. You saw a bird, So if they're going to attack somebody who's that unassailable of a witness, they're going to attack everybody, man. So,
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. If that tells you everything right there, man.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Absolutely, man. Hey, what do you guys think about these videos on TikTok? Do you guys think they're real or not, or what do y'all think?
We're not on TikTok, but I've seen some of them that get cross-posted to YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, or Instagram, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think some of. All right. Well, these aren't videos, but so we're in the Southern Appalachians, and there's lots of stories about feral people in the mountains through here. And these aren't people that are into cryptozoology or stuff like that. It's people whose families have lived in these mountains for generations will tell you there's feral people up here. Okay. So there was that TikTok craze of people talking about feral people, right? That was the craze for like a good week. Thousands of like videos on TikTok about the feral people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I watched a few of those, and you could tell that some of those were just made up, man. It was people
Yeah.
jumping on the
Right.
trend.
Right.
Mixed in with that, there were a lot of people
Nuggets of truth.
whose families
Yeah.
lived in this area
Yeah.
for generations that were telling stories that we've heard from other people ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So I think the cryptid videos are the exact same way.
Right.
Like say you're like a 22-year-old person and you catch video of something, where are you going to put it up at nowadays? You're going to put it on TikTok, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a lot of it, I think sometimes it's trendy to do it, and maybe some of it's not all real, but I think some real stuff definitely ends up on there, man. You know, and a lot of people just dismiss it because it ended up on TikTok. So
Right, right.
yeah,
Which is really hard to believe because there's a lot of fake stuff on there. I've seen
Oh
many,
yeah.
there's
many,
fake,
many
there's
fake
fake,
stuff on there. So it's really hard to distinguish what's real and what's not. You know what I mean? But
and I think
people
that
that know, they know. You know what I mean? Yeah.
in addition to people faking it, it goes back to that government influence we talked about before, man. I think sometimes somewhere someone in a position of authority releases really ridiculous stuff and tries to pass it off as real just to make
Hmm.
the whole topic look ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
if somebody goes, I saw Bigfoot, and they're telling somebody, and all that person knows is, as I saw the fakest looking footage online, and that's what I associate with Bigfoot. It's not real. I think a
Yeah.
lot of that goes on, man. I think there's a lot of like misinformation, disinformation that goes on out there to make the topic look bad to kind of hurt our overall credibility.
Yeah.
So
Hey guys, let me ask you something, man. This is my question. Have y'all ever seen or heard about the this was 3 years ago. There was supposed dog man caught on Google Earth. Okay, and it was yeah, and I have the exact. I'll give it to you. I don't care. I have the exact thing for it.
Let me do it.
Hold on one second. Okay, I have the exact address for it. It's 8828 Gray Rock Road. Have you ever heard of that? It's in Columbus,
no,
Ohio, I believe.
Jesse's
Yeah,
pulling it up on Google right now.
yeah. Well, I,
Let's
I
see.
could share the video. I have it on standby if you guys want to check it out real quick.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay, cool. And you know what? When 3 years ago when I saw this first, I think I saw it on Reddit or something like that, or YouTube. I can't remember. I looked it up and it was there. I seen it and I was like, wow, dude, yeah. So look, check this out, guys. Let me go to okay, right there. Let me go ahead and play it for y'all.
This lady doesn't believe in brevity, does she?
It's not. So, all right, let's see what we got.
And this was there 3 years ago. Now I just checked it yesterday and it's not there anymore.
Not there anymore.
No, either the brushes grew up too big or they just updated the pictures there because it's no longer there. But I said, man, I know I'm not crazy. I know it was there, and I looked it up, and there it is. I wonder.
I think I remember something
I
about
say, I
this.
remember seeing this.
You remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was 3 years ago. Look how she zooms in. I seen it. I seen it in person. I seen it on Google Earth. And it's right there, just standing right there, right behind some trees.
Yeah, see, yeah, I remember seeing that.
Mm-hmm. See how he's standing right there? The black figure, that's him.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's this thing's so complex when you talk about it. You sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, but like you
Yeah.
talk about like the missing 411 thing, right? Where people go missing and it's like it happens at the exact precise time.
Yep.
It's like something knew that they were going to have that opportunity at that moment. They took it.
Right.
It seems like these things are operating on like a level that we can't even dream of, but it seems like sometimes they screw up, sometimes they make a mistake. And I think that's when a lot of like sightings happen from. You know what I'm saying? Like with that, I'm sure that the Google Earth vehicle, those trucks with like the cameras on them that go around and take all the street view images was driving by
Right.
and it peeked out at the trees at him. Do you know what I'm saying? Not knowing that it was being filmed at that point. So Jesse's pulling up an image of it too. I mean, yeah, look at it. I mean, that's a black figure. It's
Yeah.
plain as
And it's
day.
big. And it's big. That's not a regular man. That's a huge. If it's a man, that's.
That ties into on our first LBL trip when I got that thermal image, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were down and we were pretty close to that bunker area that you always hear about, right? The bunkers, like on the northern edge of the peninsula, where the 82 massacres supposedly happened at. And we're going along, and so we're hiking, and we had just gotten this thermal imager right before we left. We had a crappy FLIR one that we were using, and then we were going to the LBL. We wanted to make sure we had a really good thermal imager, so we got a pulsar. And we're going around, so we're hiking through at night, and it's quiet. There's no wildlife there. There's no noise. The whole forest is just silent. And we start hearing something busting through the brush to our left. So generally, whenever we hear something like that in the woods, one of us will focus on the noise and the other one starts looking around all behind us, checking our backs and our sides. So Jesse's looking at that. We've got our flashlights off. Jesse's filming with a night vision camera. And I take the thermal and I start panning around. And that's when I catch that, whatever that was, that big living creature with the oversized pointy ears. And I went past it, stopped and came back and looked at it. And like it moved a little bit, so those two images I have one before it moved and then one after it moved. And then I had my flashlight hanging from my wrist by like a lanyard, right? So I go to like kind of lift my flashlight up and then I look back and it's gone. And you obviously I'm putting my own interpretation on it, but I think since we didn't have any visible light and the infrared light was pointing in the opposite direction, it didn't think we could see it. And I think when I caught and I stopped with it on the thermal, because the thermal doesn't emit anything, like in a night vision camera is shooting on infrared light. A thermal is just reading heat. It doesn't give anything off. I think it kind of went, oh crap, this guy can see me. And then when I went to get my flashlight, it ducked down, disappeared or something. But I think we caught it off guard. And that's the only way we were able to get it on thermal. That it wasn't used to people in there with like thermal imagers trying to get it at that point. Same thing with that Google Earth truck. It's not used to trucks going by that are videotaping in all directions. And that's probably why it felt safe enough to kind of come out and expose itself.
Right.
So, yeah.
And you know what's weird, that there's also videos that I was looking at yesterday about with Bigfoot. But this is like a drone taking a picture of a Bigfoot, and you can see how it it zooms in. And then there's a bunch of trees just everywhere. And then you can see how it zooms in, and the Bigfoot is just like looking up at the drone.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy, dude. It's like, wow.
One of the things that I'm really excited about over the next few years is thermal drones that have thermal cameras on them.
Oh,
are getting cheaper and more powerful all the time.
Yes.
And I'm really interested to see what happens when those really get out into more hands than they are right now. I think we're going to get some really good evidence, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yes, definitely. I was wondering, Jesse, can you share your screen if you bring up a video?
I've never done that before.
Okay, because
I've never done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I could share my screen, but for some reason I heard somebody said no audio. So what they were looking at, they seen it, but they didn't. There was no audio to it.
We couldn't hear
video.
that lady talking
No?
either. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. We couldn't hear it on there.
Oh,
No, we
that's
just
good.
pulled up
You're
the
lucky.
image. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. You're lucky because she was talking like crap.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're lucky. I was like, oh man, I felt kind of embarrassed showing y'all the video. 'Cause she was talking all kinds of ghetto hootie. God.
But guess what? That lady's probably not like into like Bigfoot and Dogman. Like that's probably not because you meet some people and they've just got it on the brain. That's all they think about.
Yeah.
And
Well, I wonder what makes me wonder is like, where did she find that, or did somebody tell her about that? You know what I mean?
Is that she probably wasn't because some people just get on Google Earth and just browse. You know what I'm saying?
Browse. Yeah, I've done it, but
So,
I've never found anything.
She doesn't seem like the person who's got like a bunch of like Bigfoot knickknacks around her house. She's not exposed to seeing that stuff. For somebody like that to see it and recognize what it is,
right?
Like adds some credibility to it at that point. When you have somebody who's into this topic a lot, sometimes you get too into it.
Well, when you're a hammer and everything's a nail.
Yeah, exactly. But you know how like you get buck fever when you're hunting a deer. You know what I'm saying? And like you just start taking shots at everything. Everything looks like a deer for you. Sometimes we get like that. People that are really into this topic. That's somebody who's not into this subject as much. You remember that guy that Dark Waters talked to, Blue, that guy in Florida?
Yes.
Fort Pierce. Somebody who's not into this topic at all, and he caught that footage, man. He took that image and he caught that footage, and I've heard people try to debunk it, but that's some of the best footage that I've seen, and that's from somebody who isn't in the cryptid community. They're not really into Bigfoot or Dogman. They're not like a researcher out there trying to get evidence. That's somebody who's just in the right place at the right time to get the footage and didn't know what they were seeing.
Right. Exactly. Yes. No. Yeah. Absolutely. It's just by chance that you like Blue. He wasn't planning that, like you said. That just happened.
He didn't know what he saw. He didn't know what he saw. He didn't have the words to describe it.
Right. But guess what? He had two. He had the one that ran behind the backyard that everybody seen.
Still image.
Then he had that still image where it was just looking into the camera.
And look at that still image he took, and look at the ears, those big bat-like ears. That matches up exactly with what we got on thermal. Those oversized pointed ears, man. When I saw that on thermal, I didn't instantly go Dogman because I was thinking smaller, like little German Shepherd ears. I wasn't expecting like giant oversized ears like that. But then when I saw his footage, I just went, that looks like what I caught on thermal, man.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at witness sketches out of the LBL. A lot of people talk about those exaggerated, oversized, pointed ears, man.
I think the Barton Nunley sketch
had like exaggerated pointed ears.
Yes, it was pretty spot on when it comes to what you captured on the thermal.
Yeah.
Right. Trying to see if I can share not through where, okay, see, when I'm on StreamYard, I have to go to what is it called, damn it, it's Google Chrome, and then on there, on the tabs on top, that's where I have to go to StreamYard, because MacBook won't let me go straight to, if I don't use the Chrome, right? So I went to YouTube through that, and that's where you couldn't hear the audio. But now I have the YouTube open just regular, not through Chrome, and I'm trying to see if I could share that to that way maybe you can hear the I think so, because once I did that and it was showing. So let me try this, guys, see if it works. Can y'all hear that? Can y'all hear the audio on that?
No.
No.
No?
I don't think anybody in the audience can film.
So it's the same thing. Okay. I just put up a video with supposed werewolf in the cemetery. But there's no audio. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, well. Okay. Well. If y'all can't hear it, then it's not even worth like watching, because this guy's giving like a whole explanation. So
those scratches on the wall. What's that look like?
All you guys would see is just like the images. or
We
whatever.
actually captured scratches on a wall very similar to that in the LBL.
So you see those scratches he just pointed to in the cemetery, Carlito?
Yeah.
There's a you hear about the bunkers in the LBL.
Yes,
We
I remember
found
those.
one of the bunkers on the inside of it. It had broken. You could see into it. It's just covered in scratches. Do you know what I'm saying? It looks like somebody just got in there with like a pickaxe and just drug it through the walls. But we saw it, and it looks like one of those ones that some of those bunkers through there, we figured out there were rainwater cisterns or they're foundations of old houses. There's a few through there that don't really have any apparent like explanation.
Function. Yeah.
And those are the ones, and that was one of the ones that had a ton of scratches inside. It looked like something had been trapped inside.
And scratching. Yeah. That's something very, very interesting when you guys said on that video, right? Where you said, what do you think it could have been? And just like, I don't know. You said, well, I think it might have been something to keep something from coming out.
Yeah.
Keeping something inside. Or keeping something outside, which containing something inside.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, wow, yeah, that makes sense. I was like, man, that's crazy.
Hell
And that
yeah,
little tunnel that you guys saw there.
Oh yeah, the tunnel was wild.
The tunnel that Station 16 that we found. See, we like going in there with like in the cold months. Okay, so there's not as many people
and not as many ticks.
But a lot of the foliage is dead, so you can see stuff that's covered up in the warmer months.
Yeah, that's how we found that abandoned bus that was on its side.
Yes, I remember that. That was great. That abandoned bus.
The LBL is absolutely huge, and there's so many things that are just hidden on the peninsula. And during the colder months, all that foliage is down, so we're able to just travel around and look, and you can see straight through the woods. And what we were doing is driving around these old back roads, and then we'd see like a dark, large thing in the woods, and we'd pull over and then run towards it and see what was out there. That's how we found foundations for old houses.
Yeah.
We found that bus.
Yeah, I've seen all those foundations.
We're
Yes.
still not sure what's
Like
going on.
3 walls up, 1 missing. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it's weird because that area where we found the tunnels at, it looks like it was originally part of either like an old well house or some sort of pumping, like irrigation type thing. Because there were people that lived in the LBL before all that land was seized and it was turned into a national recreation area. And then once they kicked everybody off, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, had like little stations through there. They were doing stuff in there. It wasn't until like the Forestry Service took it over, the Department of Agriculture, that everything just kind of fell into disuse out there. So what it looks like to us is that there were some sort of tunnels through there that a lot of them are sealed off, but not all of them are.
Yeah.
And that one we found that wasn't sealed off had the bones leading up to it, and then the bones down inside the tunnel. I don't know what that is. I mean, it's not a coyote. A coyote's not getting in and out of that tunnel. I don't know what it is, but there's something there that's killing deer, killing other coyotes, killing pretty much everything that's through there. One of the bones that we found, somebody that had a veterinarian background told us it looked like bovine. It looked like a cow bone. Well, there's no cows in the LBL.
They do breed buffalo.
Buffalo there. So what's big enough to carry a buffalo over there, like a bison,
yeah.
And that's miles away from there, man. So something big is killing even a juvenile bison's big. It's big, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But something's big enough there to kill it and then drag it there. So I don't know, but then we went back after the Dogman conference to look into it, and all the bones are gone. All the bones are
Everything
gone.
we filmed was gone.
Yeah,
Everything that we filmed and put up in that video was completely, the area was swept clean of every bone that we had filmed on there.
And there's small animals that will gnaw on bones to get calcium.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of them in our area. I mean, we have a lot of deer in the woods around our house. There's dead deer around here all the time, and we watched how those bodies decompose. Bones don't disappear that quickly when there's that many of them and they're that big.
Nope.
I mean, we have like an insane squirrel population out here, man. I mean, during the daytime, I can throw open my back door and there's 30 squirrels probably within eye range, and they don't consume the deer bones as quickly as they disappeared in the LBL.
Yeah.
We think somebody came out there and cleaned up the area, man.
Yeah.
Which is weird, which is weird. I think that somebody saw that LBL video and went out there and cleaned up all that evidence, man. So
yeah, exactly. There you go. But look, this is what's intriguing to me. Like, why would they leave that bus there? If somebody knows about it, like say the government or whatever, around their city or whatever, why would they leave it there?
Well,
why would they leave everything there? Like, why? Nobody
found that. Well, I mean, I think that people just drive past it. They can't see it in the warmer months.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell that's there when everything starts turning green again. Once you get into springtime, you won't see that again until after a couple of frosts in the winter and everything dies off. But it's weird there, man, because we found those clothes, we found those jeans and those boots that were just kind of out there on their own, man. And then we found that tent that had been torn into. Oh, now we find abandoned tents occasionally because people sometimes go in the woods and they just leave their stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We've come across homeless camps in wooded areas that are near cities. You know what I'm saying? Where this didn't look like that at all, man. This looked like somebody just left all their stuff, man. It was a decent
exactly like it was one thing to the next kind of thing. They just disappeared. They just left and left all their stuff.
The fact that the door had been ripped open, and then it looked like somebody had cut their way to
out of the bottom of it where a sleeping bag would be.
Yes, I remember.
We didn't even think about that at the time. Somebody watched that video and suggested that to us. And I went, that makes sense. They would have been laying there in their sleeping bag. Somebody's coming in the door. You just cut the tent and try to roll out and get away. But all their gear was there. It was just weird, man. It was just really weird. And then we found those scratches in the tree. It wasn't an axe mark. It wasn't somebody gouging with a knife. It looked like something clawed that tree.
Yes.
Now, one of the research areas we do is near the Pisgah Bear Sanctuary in North Carolina. It's a sanctuary for black bears. So we're used to being in woods where black bears are at. We see how bears mark trees. Those weren't bear marks, man. I can't say what they were, but it wasn't a black bear.
Do you remember how tall they were up on that tree?
That
makes a world of a difference.
I think the lowest ones were about 3 feet up. The highest ones were probably about 7
feet, taller than me.
Yeah.
And that's tall for a black bear, man. I mean, that's not even if I'm not saying it's outside the realm of a possibility that a black bear could reach up that high, but the marks weren't black bear. I don't know what they were, man. I don't know what they were. But we found that, and there's something we don't really talk about in a lot of the videos. We got the footage, we just didn't include it in the LBL videos that we did out. We ran across like vehicles out there, man,
Yes.
And we ran across a vehicle that was pulled off into the woods and there wasn't anybody around it because we come up on it at night. We caught the reflectors of the car. So we're a little hesitant approaching it. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's no real reason for a car to be here in the woods.
Right.
Man. We don't know if they're out there doing a dope deal or something.
Right.
So that car had the window rolled down. It had just been put there. It hadn't been put there. It didn't have any leaves on top of it or anything like that.
Wow. So it's
it
fresh.
had a current tag, but it was there for a week. It's like the person that was there just disappeared and left their car, man. So what we were hearing about was that area got hit by tornadoes real bad twice in the past year. And some people had lost their homes and were basically living out of their cars and were sometimes going into the LBL just to be hidden. And they were going missing. And people were warning us going, hey, there's people going missing in there right now. Well, what's going on? Tell me about it. Well, I had a friend who, lost his home in the tornado and he was like living out of his car in there and he's gone missing. We don't know where he's at. So that was the other thing. Now, did they just take a hike and get lost? I mean, I don't know, man, but it seemed like we heard that, 3 different times about cars being found there abandoned with no people around them at this point.
That's creepy. That's a creepy thought. I've always had that thought, man, if I run into a car that's just there with the lights on, should I stop or should I not? You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure y'all have heard of encounters where they do that and somebody stops, try to help that other person out, and they run into a dog man eating on that person that they they ran off the road or whatever. And then what are you gonna do? You know what I mean?
And
Fuck,
the
basically.
thing about the LBL that not a lot of people talk about, but there's ongoing like occult activity that goes on there, man.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
you want to call them satanists,
Right.
cultists, whatever you want to call them, but they operate in the LBL, man. There's people in there doing ritualistic activity, and whether they're there because of just the weird energy of the LBL, and then what they're doing is making it worse. I don't know, but I mean, you have to worry about that. I mean, you have to worry about running into somebody who's out there for up to no good and doesn't want anybody coming out of the woods saying that they saw them and saw what they were doing. So people are concerned sometimes. So
Right.
yeah.
Hey, I have a question for you guys. It's from Spiritual Encrypted Encounters. It says, what do you think of people that claim to have killed the Dogman or Bigfoot but have no proof of a dead body?
That's one of the things that always comes up. Like
There's a couple of theories about that. Does the government come and collect a body because they know about these things? Because some people say that they're a part of a government program, that they have them tracked, that they're aware of them, and that if somebody does kill one, then they will come and collect the asset, basically.
Yeah, Joe Berger, who was making the rounds not too long ago, who shot one from his tractor trailer. He was a trucker that shot one. Said that the government came in and collected the body.
Wow.
You know, it's weird because you used to hear the same thing about UFOs. There's a thing called the Fermi paradox. Fermi went, well, if they're out there, then where are they? Why do we not see them more often? And I always went, there's kind of a Fermi paradox about body evidence, with Bigfoot and now with Dogman. If they're existing, where are the bodies? And I don't think anybody's got a good answer for that.
Exactly. And you know what, too, Joe, going back to what we were talking about earlier, a lot of times, you don't know if it could be either the government or the same Dogman clan coming to get that body. You know what I mean? Because you never really find anywhere.
So you're out, and like I said, we always try to approach the fantastic as realistic as we possibly can. So, all right, so you're just an average person. You've heard like some weird little ghost stories, and maybe you saw the Patterson Gimlin film on TV one time, but you're not into this stuff. You don't really spend a lot of time thinking about it. You think it's all impossible. You're out one night and you run across a Dogman. Put yourself in that person's shoes for a second. Somebody who doesn't have really any experience with this stuff has come across something that's not supposed to exist, and it's terrifying.
Right.
So they are able to pull out a firearm and defend themselves. They shoot it, kill it, don't kill it, whatever. Let's say they kill it. They're not going to be going, wow, I need to bring this body back for evidence to prove that Dogman exists. They want to get out and save their lives. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that sort of body evidence, I'm not really looking for a lot of that, because like you said, I think people are leaving and then it's getting cleaned up somehow. Either the government's coming in and cleaning it up, or maybe it's, other entities of the same type are coming in and taking that body.
Yeah.
Right.
What's weird though is that if it's just a completely flesh and blood animal, and they're breeding in the woods, and they're staying hidden, and they're just really smart, that's why we can't catch them. All it takes is for like one to make a mistake, one to like get hit by a car. You know what I'm saying? One to get killed out where its fellow Dogmen are not there to retrieve it. Where's that one that makes these mistakes like this that we get a body with?
Right.
And there's always a couple of things that I think of for it. I always wonder how many are out there and they just get vanished by the government and covered up, and they never come to us like that. And let's be honest, man, if somebody took pictures of it and put them online, I killed this thing, here it is, everybody's going to say it's fake, man.
Yeah.
Because there's been pictures like that out there before of people claiming that they've killed stuff like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And it's nobody believes it. And that's a big thing in the Bigfoot community too, is that people are always like, we need a body.
Yeah.
Footprints aren't going to do it. Hair's not going to do it. Video's not going to do it. DNA's not even going to do it, because we don't have a direct match to it in GenBank to match it up to and say that it's Bigfoot DNA. It's going to take a body. And I always tell people that I don't even think it's going to take a body, because you're not going to be able to get that body out. Let's say Carlito, like next week, you shoot a Bigfoot. Okay. You got it dead. You bring it home. You got it in your garage. You take photos of it. Your neighbors come over and look at it, and then word gets out that, this guy's killed a Bigfoot. He's got one in his garage. All that it's going to take is the government showing up, They take your Bigfoot, they lay down a dead monkey, a chimpanzee, right? And they go, nothing to see here, folks. There was a private animal collector. This chimpanzee got out. This guy got scared, thought he shot a Bigfoot. He killed a monkey. Now, we're not going to charge him with killing a monkey. We're going to let him get away with it. But this is what he did. He was an idiot. He thought he killed him. And everybody would believe that story. You know what I'm saying? Everybody would believe that story. Everybody would be talking about, did you hear about the guy who killed a monkey thinking it was Bigfoot?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's easy to cover up, but that's something that always kind of makes me question, where's that one that slips through? Why don't we have that after all these years, man? And I don't have an answer for it. I don't think anybody does. So.
You know the only real one that got away from him and that I remember was the one from Roswell, where they actually put UFO. You can see it on the newspaper, and then the next day they reprinted it saying no, it was a weather balloon. You know what I mean?
Well, so you want to go down the rabbit hole? We just did that podcast on this. All this stuff ramped up in the 40s, man.
Yeah.
I think that we talked about the Jack Parsons Babylon summoning. That right after that, you had the Kenneth Arnold UFO flap. You had Roswell. I think that's when stuff started picking up, and the government wasn't prepared to cover it up. And I think that after Roswell and all that, that's when they got the system into place to cover this stuff up, man. You know, I think that they were doing cover-ups on limited stuff. You always hear about the Smithsonian taking giant skeletons and all that. But I think after Roswell is where they got the cover-up machine into place, and it was finally tuned.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
They were more prepared for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And imagine how much technology advancement they got from that, man. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I've heard anywhere from 50 to 100 years more advanced than we are in the public.
Well, there was that story about Eisenhower meeting with the alien Greys and making a deal with them for technology.
And in exchange, they would be able to abduct people.
Yes.
The government
it was called Paperclip, wasn't it?
No, that's where the Nazi scientists were brought over from Germany after World War II.
That's right. That was Werner von Braun. But which one was the one with Eisenhower? I can't remember right now. What?
Eisenhower. I can't remember what the name of the treaty was, but he met with them, and that was the thing. Is they were willing to use technology.
Yeah,
in exchange
they say you
for,
can take humans. For your experimentations.
We abduct people without you getting involved with it.
Right.
We really go over a lot of this. Our podcast is called Dark Dive, and we do that in addition to the field investigations. But we go into really, really just deep rabbit holes on things, and we do that. That's why we do the podcast. But we just released an episode. It's episode number 7, and it's titled "The Diabolical Hypothesis." And we go over the Babylon working, what happened with that, and how that connects to aliens and UAP sightings.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned it earlier, Carlito, that a lot of people don't want to talk about that. Just call it demonic, and we don't necessarily say you have to approach it from a Christian viewpoint, okay? Maybe demons are just things that are coming from another dimension, and that's how we're interpreting them, demons. But it seems like so much of this stuff ties into stuff that doesn't belong in this reality.
Yeah.
And comes over, and sometimes it brings stuff with it, and then it just goes away, and we don't have a trace of it,
Right.
And it's like I said. I mean, if Patterson Gimlin film, it's obvious they filmed something that day,
That's
but where's
like
the rest of them, man? If there's there'd have to be 5,000 of them to have a breeding population.
Exactly.
All it would take is one crossing in front of a semi,
and
getting plastered out there, or just one making a mistake, man, and just So I don't know, but it seems like so much of that stuff is tied into.
Yeah, but we know if that was to happen, Joe, like a trucker hitting one, in a highway somewhere, the state troopers would be there like flies on you know what I mean, and then right after that they would who would be notified, and it would never make the news. It would never make the news.
That's working.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird because you would think there'd be at least one, but you don't know. Maybe there was one, and it's so weird that nobody believed it, and that gives them a little bit of a cushion to be able to cover stuff up. You're dealing with stuff that's not supposed to exist, A lot of people hear, hey, did you hear that this like upright werewolf thing got hit down on Interstate 85 the other day? 9/10 of the people are just going to go, nah, it didn't happen. It's a lie,
Right. They cover
we
it.
talk about that a lot. Is that
Yeah.
of course the government's covering it up. Why wouldn't they? It's so easy to cover up because
Yeah.
people are predisposed not to believe this sort of stuff.
It's like that old lady that got attacked, and then they turned it into it was some dogs or something. And
You see that all the time.
There's
We-
a
Yeah.
lot of stories like that
Yeah.
it's a mystery at first, and then
Mhm.
they come out and they say, "Oh, it's just dogs."
just wild
It's
dogs,
just
and
this,
then the
yeah.
story disappears. And
Right.
I remember when I was a kid, you'd have people get bitten by dogs. That's always happened.
Right.
And when I was a kid, there weren't all these dog attacks that people,
Right.
It's almost like a weekly occurrence somewhere in the country now.
Right.
Somebody gets ripped up and they just blame it on wild dogs.
No, that's not. There's no way. Dogs don't do
Oh,
that. With
well-
dogs, once they see you're dead, that's it. They leave you alone. Or once
Well,
they see you're not moving, they leave you alone.
And,
They
and
don't
if
kill
look
you.
at
They
Kentucky-
don't do the overkill with the slashes and missing body parts and stuff like. They don't do that. You know what I mean?
That's
I
why
mean,
Kentucky's so weird.
it's common sense.
East of the LBL, there are so many like local werewolf stories, and they have their
Yes.
individual names. There's, the Gateway Werewolf, Bearzilla, all these different
The
things.
Waddy Werewolf.
Waddy Werewolf, and there's all these like animals and people that are attacked by dogs only in this area. And I'm like, what's going
Right.
on with the dogs there, man?
Did
I
you
mean-
guys hear about the one with the kid that got drug up a steep hill
Corey
and then
Corey
snatched?
Godsey,
Yeah.
that's the Corey Godsey case, and there's a lot of
Hey.
really weird stuff that goes on.
And there was a fence, so something jumped over that fence, snatched the kid, jumped back over the fence, and then climbed that steep hill. And they're
So-
trying to say that it was a cougar afterwards.
So I'll tell you what we know on the Corey Godsey case,
Mhm.
and a lot of this is stuff that's been relayed to us. Okay,
Mhm.
so but this is what we've been told by talking to people in that area. So Corey Godsey, he's a kid. He's staying with some relatives. Okay, his grandfather's there. He's not staying with his parents. But this is a pretty economically, it's a poor area. You know what I'm saying? Not a lot of money in this area, a lot of poor people and all that. So he gets killed. Okay. You have Kentucky State Police. There's no local police department there in that area. It's a very poor area. They can't afford their own police department, and it's very sparsely populated.
Mhm.
So the Kentucky State Police are the ones who are handling the crime, basically.
Right, so they swing by every once in a
Yeah, so they're there when he gets killed, and there's residents in that area that tell them there are these weird, like they're calling them like dogs and wolves. They live in these caves because when they found Corey Godsey, he had been drugged up a hill. He was being
Right.
drugged towards this cave entrance. Okay,
drug up, yeah. Mm-hmm.
so the residents tell the Kentucky State Police that there are these weird, like dogs and wolves that live in these caves. What feral dogs live in caves, man? They're not going to live in caves. But that they come out and they attack animals through there. And they saw a little kid. He was small for his age.
Yeah.
They got over the fence. They got him, and they were dragging him up the hill when I guess they got startled away.
Mhm.
So the Kentucky State Police are there, and then this other organization shows up, and we've heard that it was either a branch of Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, or some sort of like Kentucky like animal control on a statewide level. They show up and take over the crime scene.
Yes.
But the residents, the neighbors there, are talking about how the Kentucky State Police and this new group that shows up, there's a lot of animosity going on there, right? Which you wouldn't think that would be going on if that was another state agency. The residents think that it was some sort of federal people that came in pretending to be, and they said
what they're not. Yeah.
They closed off that area. They went up there, and then they brought down these dead dogs that looked like they had been dead for a while, and said,
and said that they killed them.
Here's
Yeah.
the dogs, and they're going, these dogs are 30 pounds. These dogs didn't drag this kid up the side of the mountain.
Now,
And
we
they
take
basically went, that's all. They put the dad, they were the grandfather. They put the grandfather and the doctor who did his autopsy under gag orders. They can't talk about it.
right.
Why is that go on if they were just killed by wild dogs?
Exactly.
And the neighbors were just going, we don't know who these guys were. They came in, they took over. I think there was
Right.
something in those caves, and I think they might have gone in there and killed whatever was in those caves.
Now, the only real evidence that I would believe that it would have been a dog is like maybe a giant wolf, like the one I have on the screen, which is what I want to talk about. By the
But
way,
they don't live in caves either. They're saying
Yeah,
that
they
they're
don't.
coming out of these caves.
But
They
see,
said
this
there was old mines and caves through there, and they were living in that. And then they were like down deep into these mines, and they would come out and attack people. Wolves don't do that. Wolves live in the forests, man. You know.
Right.
I mean, you've had dogs before. Do dogs just go indicate? I mean, they just don't do it. That's not natural. That's not natural animal behavior. So
Now that wolf right there is really creepy. What do you guys think about that?
I've seen that before, and it's huge
Super
and
creepy,
yeah,
man.
it's giant. I mean, wolves do get big.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Right,
yeah.
but see, the thing is, imagine if he stood up, he would look like a dog man, like what everybody knows of a dog man. If he
Oh yeah.
stood
I
up.
mean, I'm
Yeah.
6'3". He would probably be taller than me if he stood on his hind legs at that point.
That's why it's so creepy that one, but yeah, man, it's crazy, and there's a lot of them. Well, see, the thing is too, like where that guy is, you looked up into that, right? That kid that died. Are there any known wolves to be around there?
There's no wolves really through there. I
Maybe
mean,
not, right? Most
there might have been
likely
feral
not.
dogs. There might very well have been feral dogs. But
Right.
there's always been feral dogs, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, since back like when I was a kid, there were groups of feral dogs running around. And yeah, sometimes they'd bite people, sometimes they'd attack livestock. I mean, I grew up in a small rural area.
Right.
But you wouldn't hear about these just really vicious dog attacks where they just are taking down adults and just ripping them to shreds on almost
Right.
a weekly basis. You know what I'm saying?
But check out
So-
these wolves that they've been catching, man. Like this one right there, that's a
Yeah,
giant wolf.
that one's great, and that one's huge. That's the size of a
Huge.
horse, man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So-
yeah. You
I
know,
mean-
what that would remind you of is
Mhm.
what a dire wolf, which has been
Yes,
extinct for a very,
right.
very long time.
Well, all right. So then you go into Skinwalker Ranch. That's one of the more famous Skinwalker Ranch stories. It's
Mhm.
about that huge wolf that
Yeah.
comes in, and it comes up to the first family that lived there, and they think it's like a stray dog, so they're kind of nervously trying to pet it, and then it attacks one of the calves there. Well, they start shooting it, and the bullets have no effect.
Yeah.
And it basically gets bored and then just walks off. And they never said it went on hind legs, but they said it looked like a dire wolf that didn't seem to be affected by gunfire. That's not natural.
That
you know
is
what I'm saying? So,
highly unnatural.
yeah. So
Exactly. Who was it? Tracker said, CPK, thanks for putting Joe and Jesse on, two of my favorite peeps. The real deal, yes,
also,
I
too,
know.
I see the comment about Jonestead Farm. She said that she read a different story about the boy that got killed, posted by a family member a day or two after the incident. Hey, if you want to reach out to us with that, because so far I've heard
You talking about
different
this one?
versions. That's Corey. She's talking about Corey Godsey. She heard a different story. I've heard 3 different ones. If she'd reach out to us, I'd love to hear what she heard about it. So, because again, that's why I prefaced this by saying this is what we were told. I've heard about 3 different versions. That's been the one that seemed like the person telling us was actually there. So it seemed like they would have, but I'm sure there's other versions out there. And what we heard might not be correct. You know, that's the other thing you have to always go about too. You're dealing with secondhand information. So if she's got a different version, I'd love to hear about it to see if it matches up with anything else we heard. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Spiritual Encrypted Encounters asked the question, any Indian burial grounds in the area, but I don't know if he's referring to the one with the kid that got...
It doesn't matter because
Further
almost
up, or-
all of them have Indian burial grounds near them.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah,
I heard
yeah.
that.
It's
Mhm.
pretty
Yeah.
much all of them have Indian burial grounds around them.
Generally, or native earthworks are generally associated also with that. And you have instances of dogmen being sighted in liminal areas, bridge areas where it's bridges, cemeteries, lines of crossing, basically.
Right.
And I don't know what the correlation is with that, but when we do our investigations, before we look, if we're going to an area to go and do a expedition there and a field investigation, one of the first things I do is I check what kind of native earthworks are in that area and what kind of history is in that area, because more times than not, there's always some sort of cemetery or earthwork when there have been
Yes.
dogman sightings.
Yes.
It
I
seems
believe
like,
that.
and what's weird is that kind of liminal area that ties in with like European folklore a lot. Like what you would consider like stories of the Fae always took place in areas that were kind of on the edge, or like that crossing between one area to another.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense if these are just flesh and blood creatures. Why are they being associated with cemeteries, Native American burial mounds, places like that? But yeah, it's almost literally, and there's a lot of Native American mounds in this part of the country.
Yes.
And it seems like no matter where you find activity at, there's gonna be a Native American burial mound or just like some sort of earthwork within a real close proximity to it. So
Right. No. Yeah. And you know what? Too. It goes back to the stories. Remember when we were kids and in movies and such, where they'd say like, a werewolf would pop up out of next to a cemetery or a creepy building or something that had to do something with some type of paranormal thing going on around there. You know what I mean?
yeah. And
why would they relate the werewolf to that? You know what I mean? Why does it have to be a creepy place or a haunted place or something, some kind of paranormal place for a werewolf to show up at?
And
you know what I mean?
Linda Godfrey did a lot of the like legwork for a lot of this stuff, as far as like actually collecting Dogman stories from all over the world.
You have that instance. There was it was a home for the infirm, and Rosemary Kennedy, after her botched lobotomy, was actually housed there, I think, for the rest of her life. But it was a Catholic-run institution, so they had a church there with a cemetery, but it was also a hospital and a school for the infirm. And that is a very famous story that the night watchman saw a dog man digging into the Indian burial mound that was on the property. It looked at him and it said Gadara.
Whoa.
And Gadara has like biblical connotations to it.
Really?
But that was one of the stories. Whenever you would hear Linda Godfrey talk about stuff, it would be about this dog man digging in a cemetery.
I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
Guy. But I mean, a lot of the stories, she was the first one to really start drawing parallels to dogmen with cemeteries, burial mounds. And that kind of gives it, like you said, kind of a creepy supernatural element.
Yeah.
There's no reason for a natural animal to be hanging around an Indian burial ground or like a cemetery. But if it's supernatural, that kind of makes sense all of a sudden. So.
Right. Yeah, I pulled up the video of the one at the cemetery where he's digging.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But it's one of those things that just pops up so often. That's
it makes
like the hallmarks of like dogmen activity is that it happens somewhere like that, some sort of liminal spot. Seems like it happens around cemeteries, Native American burial grounds, places where the earth has been disturbed.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, mining, which is weird because when you go into the LBL, there's cemeteries everywhere. There's actually a place named Indian Mound near there because there's a lot of Native American burial mounds. Old battlefields. There's a Civil War battlefield that's real close to there. But there's mining that takes place all around the LBL. There's mines all around there.
Well, it's not mining; it's quarries.
Quarries. So, still ripping the ground up.
But, it's a huge destruction of the land. It's like a huge disturbance of the land, and that goes back to what I mentioned before earlier in the episode here. That it's just like when you start construction on a house or do renovations and you stir up paranormal activity. You've got all of these elements. I think that's why the LBL is as active as it is.
It's got every element possible.
It has every element possible. It's surrounded by Indian mounds. It has a history of violence. It has a very dark history.
Lots of occult stuff going on.
Stuff going on. And it just seems like it checks all the boxes. And I think that's why we're kind of obsessed with the LBL. And that's why we had to go there on our expeditions that we went. We stayed so long and got all that we did. We'll be heading back very soon and continuing our LBL series. So we'll be there for a while coming up, and we're going to continue on with our LBL series and continue our investigations there.
Yes, I can't wait for that, guys. When is that gonna start?
We're gonna probably.
I was just gonna ask you about that.
And
we're gonna go back soon. We don't ever like to tell anybody when we're going anywhere.
Right.
Out there prepared for us to try to host us and anything like that. But we're gonna probably go over the next couple of months. We're gonna actually try to meet up with Martin Groves. Try to meet him down there, and our friend Dewey, and then Barton Nunley. So there's a group of us that are going down in there to try to check out some different areas. There's so much going on the LBL. People always associate the LBL with that early 80s RV massacre. There's so much other weird stuff going on down there.
There's a lot.
I mean, we had a lady contact us talking about like underground military stuff that was going on there. And I took a spectrum analyzer with us, and I was picking up really high frequency RF signals, which are usually around the same band that military communication takes place on down there. It's in the spot where she claimed there were underground military, like some sort of underground military tunnel going on.
Yeah.
We heard that weird rumbling down there. So there's a lot of weird stories. And I mean, just on the surface, it seems like a lot of them are true down there.
Yes.
Wow. Hey, would you guys ever consider going like to Brazil or something like that? Maybe another country to do your investigations?
Because we're in contact with quite a few people from, South America. I mean, there's it's weird because like, let's just call them werewolves. Like the belief in werewolves is so strong down through there.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
We've had some really credible stuff go on down there. Brazil, Central America, parts of Mexico and everything like that. It's very much, it's a really active spot that doesn't really get the attention that it probably deserves. So.
Right. Especially Brazil. There's been a lot of, sightings and encounters that they see like these werewolves. I don't know if you guys seen this famous picture where a werewolf's walking down the street at night and CCTV captures it.
One of the guys who watches our channels from Brazil, actually, and I don't know if he's even in the chat right now, but he, in his village, they've had all sorts of stuff. They had to abandon a village near him because things were coming in the village at night attacking people. He said that they brought it out. They brought the military in. That it's so much more prevalent down there than here for some reason. But when you hear about Dogman, you don't really hear a lot about that. So yeah, I'd love to go down there and investigate, man. That's like, it seems like as far as the world goes, a definite hotspot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome if y'all could go like to out of the country, you know what I mean? Like maybe South America, Central America, you know what I mean? That would be awesome if y'all could cover, that far, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that'd be great, man. I mean, we always keep joking around that like one of these days we'll get a sponsor. You know what I'm saying? Some billionaire with who's interested in this stuff might sponsor us to start doing stuff like that and really broaden our horizons out. So
Yeah, I can't wait for there to be a continuation on you guys, man. Can't wait. The first two were, what was it, 3, right?
We did 2 on our first trip, and then we did 3 videos when we went down there and did the scent experiment. So we've had,
and then we returned after the Dogman conference, but that was just for one evening.
Yeah, that was just I remember. So it was like basically 3, right? Total. The ones y'all have.
We've been down there investigating 3 times now. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome, man. I can't wait to see the fourth one. Like I said.
Well, what's going to be cool in the 4th one is that, there's Sasquatch activity in the LBL as well.
Right.
And people always say that there's Dogman in the north and Sasquatch in the south. It doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like they're kind of, both of them are all over the place. But, one of the things you always hear about with Sasquatch, at least, is like infrasound, that they use that infrasound to like zap people and something like that. Well, I've got some equipment that can actually detect infrasound now that we had built for us. It's similar to what people use on like big game preserves in Africa, because elephants use infrasound as well. Right. They use a variation of this to kind of track elephant migration and kind of see how elephants communicate with each other. I got in touch with the company that makes that, and it was funny because he was asking what I needed it for. And I don't want to tell this guy, hey, I'm looking for Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying? It's the guy that makes scientific equipment up in Virginia. And I kind of danced around it for a little bit. And then finally I just went, screw it. I was like, I'm looking for Bigfoot. And the guy didn't even bat an eye. He was just like, all right, whatever. So I told him we needed it to be kind of contained so we can carry it in backpacks and move it around. So he made this for us. And it's funny because now he's putting a version of it up for sale. And he's actually got in the description of what you use it for. Sasquatch research, like Bigfoot hunting stuff. But we've got this equipment that can test infrasound. So we want to get into the LBL this next time and start taking infrasound readings and see if we can pick up high levels of infrasound and then try to like key in on where that's coming from. Instead of just going around blind, they might be in one particular area more than another. And infrasound travels a long distance. It's a low frequency wave. So our plan is that we'll go into one spot, we'll do a reading. If we detect it, we'll head in a direction. If the signal gets stronger, we'll keep heading in that direction. If it gets weaker, we'll try another direction, but basically try to triangulate in and try to see if we can find an area down there that's active. Nobody's ever done that before, so we're really looking forward to seeing what we can do, and if we can maybe try to really kind of hone in on like an active area.
And I
there.
think that's something that really sets us apart from a lot of other people that do this kind of work, is that we actually go out there, we try different things, we try different experiments, and we get this scientific equipment, we learn how to use it, and then go out there and get readings and use it and try to apply it to it instead of kind of just talking about it. I think that we're actually out there running these experiments, and we have a method and a system.
Right.
I think that it's finally time that somebody goes out there and actually goes out there and gets the information firsthand.
Yes,
and gets real data. I mean, real data is very important to this work.
And a lot of this stuff, I think, is beyond our current understanding of science. I think that's why people kind of like naysay it so much. So much of it is beyond what we understand as far as our science goes. But there's certain elements of it that we can pick up on. Just like a UFO sighting, they can go in the next day with Geiger. They don't know what a UFO is, but they know that there's high levels of radiation in the area after they saw it.
Right.
And I think a lot of these like entities do the exact same thing. And I mean, I think that we may not know what the entities are, where they come from, where they go to, but I think that there's parts of them that we can detect. You know what I'm saying? Like taking an EMF detector into a haunted house. You don't know what a ghost is, but you know that when there's a ghost around, the EMF detector goes off.
Right.
I think some of these cryptids, some of these entities and humanoids, whatever you want to call them, I think there's certain parts of them that we can measure and maybe get a better understanding of what they are. So,
Right.
yeah, so we're real tech heavy. We use a lot of
I see that. Yeah, I know that. I was about to mention that. You guys have like the best technology out there, and gear to do what you do. So that's why I like to say, you're two of the best guys that I know out there. You know what I mean? That are actually doing something and trying your best, with your best equipment that you can, to actually bring something, like data, like Jesse said.
Yeah.
Actual
and again,
data.
We may not be able to explain it, but we might start seeing different patterns. You know what I'm saying? That maybe will help us hone in on it. A lot of times, I always say this: I don't think we're necessarily looking for answers at this stage. We're trying to figure out the right questions to ask at this stage. You know what I'm saying? And so every little bit of data we get, we can kind of hone in a little bit better and maybe refine our approach. I mean, we do things a lot differently now than we did 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and we'll probably do things a lot differently 4 years from now than we're doing right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
you have to constantly change with it and evolve your techniques, because if you try the same thing over and over again,
Right, exactly.
you're
never going to get something. Yeah.
Because I mean, let's just be honest about this. These things are real. There's people out there that are going missing and dying. It's real.
Yes.
We've been for 50, 60 years, we've had people going out in the woods, beating on trees with sticks, doing their howls, casting footprints, and nothing's changed, And it seems like the activity's ramping up. It's time to try new stuff, man. And we don't have any illusions. I mean, we're just two people with like the equipment we can buy and build ourselves, and then we're self-taught on a lot of this stuff. But I think if there's one thing we're doing is we're taking like a different approach to it.
Yes. Because
it's the same old tried and true stuff hasn't gotten us anywhere, man.
No, but you guys are awesome, because I really, honestly, I don't see anybody else out there doing that currently. Now, in the past, maybe, Jody Cook and a lot of people that went to LBL, but past that, not currently, you guys are the only ones that, that are doing it so well,
Well, it's weird because I was obviously familiar with Jody Cook and then everything like that. And then when we got into the LBL, like, we don't think that area that everybody associates with the 82 massacre is where the massacre took place at. Right. And we're talking about that. And we're thinking we've discovered something new. And then I talked to Jody Cook. Jody Cook was of the same opinion 15 years before us, you know what I'm saying? So we always say, whenever we talk about that, we go, listen, we came up to this on our own, but we're not the first people to do it. Jody Cook, theorized like 15 years before that he didn't think that massacre took place. So that kind of gives it some credence. Two different people kind of honed in on the same area.
Yeah.
But when you get down to it, Jody Cook did it first. You know what I'm saying? So he was there and he did it first, man.
Right.
But I mean, and that's the thing, is that we try to definitely, like, we talk to Barton Nunley a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, Barton Nunley, I think, we were talking about this last week, out of everybody out there right now, I think Barton Nunley's probably got the best grip on what's going on with a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
When we had that sighting of whatever we saw last weekend, the light, the portal, the UFO, whatever you want to call it, we're talking about coming back, and I'm going, this is where it kind of sucks, is because there's not a lot of people doing this stuff out here, so we can't really compare notes with people a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
Like, a lot of times we're just stumbling along on our own, and then we started talking about Barton, and we were both just like, we think Barton's pretty much got the best
grip on
what's going on out here out of anybody else in the field, you know? And but you know what? Here's the good thing, though, is that I wish there were more people out there trying different stuff. You know what I'm saying? Trying different things, and we have people that we don't agree with at all, but they're out there doing stuff and they're trying it.
Right.
And
yeah, you got to give them credit. Yeah.
Well, it's almost like you need those people. You need some people out there looking at it from a flesh and blood angle, and then maybe people looking at it from a spiritual angle, and maybe cover all the bases, man.
Yeah, and eventually maybe piece it all together.
Yeah, cover all the bases. But I mean, when we do those live streams on Monday, we have people come up with some of the most brilliant stuff that we've never thought of before, and that's what you need. You need like a bunch of people putting their brains together, trying to like come up with new stuff to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and giving you feedback, giving you feedback on what you're doing, and maybe how to make you think how you can better that, right?
Or giving us new ideas that we
ideas. Yeah, exactly. It's always good for that. Yeah. Wow, cool, man. Well, guys, I think we're getting pretty close to our benchmark on the time here. We're going on 2 hours and 30 minutes. I know y'all can go easy another 3 hours. I've seen y'all lives before. I've seen y'all lives. Yeah, I've seen y'all lives like, whoa, they went 5 hours, 6 hours. Like, God.
Well, I think our max is about 3.5 right now.
Yeah, our max is 3.5.
3.5. Okay.
Yeah. But you get on there, and those live streams are supposed to be interactive.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
We don't
that's what they are.
Anything. We just sit there and talk to the people in the chat, and
sometimes
we don't want to turn it off because we're hearing such cool stuff.
So much stuff. Yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah, those live streams, they've been invaluable to us over the past few weeks of doing those.
There's a lady that comes into our live streams all the time, and she was like, "Have you guys ever?" One of the things we talked about in the Skinwalker Ranch is they were using plants as like biodetectors. So you would take a particular plant, and you would have one of those inside Skinwalker Ranch, and then the same plant outside Skinwalker Ranch.
See what happens.
See if maybe the growth rates are different, and they call them basically biological sensors. And this lady on our chat, who was it that talked about you guys should use yourselves, Jill Duck said you should use yourselves as biological sensors. You should wear stuff that tracks
the biometric
your heart rate,
data.
Tracks your heart rate, your temperature, blood pressure, everything like that, to see if maybe your body's responding differently in other areas. And I'm going, nobody's ever talked about doing that before. That's brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
And
I've never
so
even heard of that.
We get a lot of really good information like that from people, man. That's why we're always like we don't come into it like we know everything.
Right, exactly.
Everybody's got something to share. That's because I think that's quite honestly one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard, as far as something that nobody's done. So we're looking to try to do that over the next year. So,
Right. No, absolutely, man. Like I said, I can't stress enough about how much I love you guys' show, man. Like even the live too, dude. It's like it's just going back and forth with the chat and their ideas. I've seen that, and I've seen you guys like addressed almost not every single one, but almost every question and and ideas. I've thrown some in there myself, and you guys read them out. I see that. I mean, you guys are great, man. You guys are great, really, man, because not a lot of people out there like that, you know what I mean? A lot of people like to keep whatever they have to themselves, like, no, it's just me, kind of grinchy or whatever. But you guys are real down to earth, you know what I mean? You guys are go-getters. You guys, balls of steel out there in LBL, really. I mean, because not a lot of people do that. You know what I mean? Yeah, and nighttime too. That's the real scary part right there, nighttime. But yeah, man, you guys are doing so great, man. And like I said, I love your channel. I can't stress it enough. And thank you for adding me on too on your channel. I saw that, Joe. Thank you, man. When you told me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody's listening to this right now that hasn't subscribed to this channel, we're trying to get Cryptid and Paranormal Kingdom up to 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, trying to get to 1,000. Almost there. I'm at 713, something like that. Check today. So Almost there. 300 more, which is not.
We'll hype you.
Well,
Yes.
hey, and that's Carly. That's one of the things we always talk about is that it seems like sometimes with this that people get upset if somebody else is successful. They're
Yeah.
almost kind of going, that should be my attention.
Well,
Yeah.
that's, I talk about this sometimes. It's called the scarcity mentality, that you think that there's only a limited amount of attention that can go around or success that can go around. And that's just simply not true. And it's important to cultivate an abundance mentality.
More
because-
people getting successful with this, the better.
And the
So,
more eyes we have
Yeah.
on this subject, the closer we get to finding that key and critical piece of information that could break the case on some of these.
Exactly.
So it's very important that more people get involved in this and more people get interested in it. I think it's great for everybody, and
Yes.
it's good for the topic. It's good to have different perspectives get involved in this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jesse and Joe. And another thing is, people need to leave their egos out at home. Their ego, trying to be the best at everything, trying to be the only one. You know what I mean? No, we're all working together on this. We need to, yeah, maybe you might not like somebody, but you're not gonna, dog that person just because you don't like him. He might have, good points and good evidence and good, whatever, something that you might not have or something. So that's what I'm saying. Like work with each other. You know what I mean?
I like seeing. I mean, obviously, I want our channel to grow and do better because the
Right.
more people we have, the more witnesses we get. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
better for us. We get more of a network. But I want to see like all the other channels get big too, man. I mean,
Right.
it's not. Some people
Right.
it seems like it's
It's
not enough
competition
for them
or
to
something.
succeed. You need to fail too. On top of that,
Right.
That's not
Right.
how we are, man. We'd like to see the more people interested in this subject, the better it is, man. So,
Exactly. And they see it like a competition. Like no,
yeah,
I
there's
need.
no- yeah.
Yeah, it's like no, dude. It's like everybody, can do what put in what they can. You know what I mean?
We're big on that, man. We don't get involved. That if there's one thing about like the dogman community, especially, it's all the feuds, man. And we've had people kind of come on our channel and kind of start stuff, and we just block it and move on, man.
Yeah.
We don't have
Right.
time to look how long it
Exactly.
took us to set this show up. I mean, time is nobody's got enough time to do the stuff you want to do.
Right.
Why spend time doing something you don't want to do, like arguing with people,
Exactly.
And again, just because somebody else has a different approach, that's a good thing, man. We don't need everybody out there doing the same thing. We're not going to crack it otherwise. So
That's absolutely right. Thank you guys for that
Yeah.
that comment. Yes, thank you. And yeah, well, hopefully hopefully everybody hears this. People that don't like each other, people that don't like me, hopefully they hear it and they know that I don't hate them.
put all that stuff to the side and let's just focus on trying to get answers, man.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. That's why everybody got into this in the first place. So
Yes, exactly. We should all work together. Yes, thank you guys. Well, guys, it's been great having you guys on tonight, man.
it's been great, man.
Like I said, and thank you for finally making the time to come on my show and granting me this small wish that I always wanted to have you guys on my show, man.
Hey,
Thank
man,
you,
thank
thank
you
you
for having
both
us.
very
Yes,
much.
thank you for having us.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Joe. And I'll see you guys on y'all next live, man.
We'll see
All
you
right.
then, buddy.
Yep,
Yeah,
so
man,
we are
and-
live on Mondays at 8 p.m.
Mondays.
on our YouTube channel. If you guys are not subscribers to our channel, make sure you subscribe over at Hellbent Holler on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram at Hellbent Jesse.
Hellbent Holler.
Joe is on there as well, and he's got that hot Hellbent Holler drip right there. Had to do all of our plugs in there, but
Yeah.
check us out if you haven't checked us out before. We have a variety of things that we do, and we are always trying to innovate and evolve as we go along.
Absolutely. Awesome. Joe, do you have anything you want to add, bro?
No, man, I appreciate you having us on, buddy. Like I said, this is actually my first show that I've ever done outside the show that we do. So I'm just glad I got a chance to do it on your channel, buddy.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I feel honored for that, man. Thank you both, Jesse and Joe. Thank you very much. And well, all right, guys. Well, y'all know what to do, man. Hit that like button, that subscribe button, and share button, and whatever you want to do. And we'll see you guys on the next show. I'll let y'all know in the group, of course. And thank you guys again, everybody that showed up tonight. And I hope y'all all enjoyed Jesse and Joe tonight from Hellbent Holler. And They're a great channel. Go check them out if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys next time. Carlito, peace out.
Thanks, guys.